Bearcat Bounce Podcast, back at it again. As always, it is I, Brent Young, joined alongside two guys, two fantastic pals. One was taking a little bit of round ball. The other was overcoming another sickness, but he's back, full force. Time for another beautiful Bearcat Bounce Podcast, which means we could bring in good pals, good friends, your comrades, Aaron Smith and Chad Brendel. Aaron, Chad, gentlemen, how are we?
I'm good. How about you?
I'm solid.
You're solid.
Solid, you know. Thanks for asking. It doesn't normally come back to me, but I want to ask how Aaron is first before I dive in further. Aaron, how are we?
I think I'm good, man. I had a temperature of almost 102 over the weekend. It was stupid. And then I got sunburnt mowing the lawn, but yeah, that was my first experience with the 4 acres out here.
Oh, jeez. So, how was that?
Like I said, I got sunburnt.
Did you have a rider?
Yeah. First time on a zero turn, so that was interesting.
Very, very interesting. Well, I wonder if the rider had some mechanical issues or some issues wrong with it, the engine, if you will. Could we maybe see if we can take it to Danco transmission?
It's a 2.5-hour drive, so probably not. But
might be worth it.
But you could.
Get the oil change on it. I think you could drive that far. I believe in you. But head over to Danco Transmission. A huge thanks. Huge shout out to them right in the beginning. Of course, Danco Transmission. Mention the BBP. Mention Chad. Mention 102-degree fever on a riding lawnmower. Get $10. What is it? 10% off your next service? Wow. Did that change? Or is it $10 off the oil change? We'll figure it out.
$10 off the oil change.
We know Danco, Joe. We'll figure it out. But, guys, this is kind of the episode before the episode, if you will. A lot of things coming up at the end of this week. First, NFL draft. We've been talking about it ever since the beginning of last season. Probably before the season before that, just constantly talking about how big of an event this is going to be all weekend. And then, of course, a big day on Sunday as well. Rayvon Griffith's commitment day. If things go well all throughout this weekend, that show on Monday is going to be an electric factory. It's going to be 100 times 100. It's going to be awesome, awesome show. But right now, it's the build-up. It's the excitement. It's the pageantry leading up to what's going to be a fantastic NFL draft. Chad, you and Dave kind of broke it down a little bit on the previous BCJ pod. I don't know if you're planning on doing one during the draft or kind of what you're planning on this week with him, but we got to get a little bit of our takes. Aaron, I know you're a big NFL guy. You're a big Bengals guy. We'll see kind of how the NFL draft feels leading into everything. And, of course, Chad, you were at another AAU tournament this weekend. You got to see probably one of the bigger names in the country as things continue to rise. And Isaiah Collier, we're going to break down kind of what you were able to see from him and his game. You guys touched on that a little bit during the recaps. And then, of course, dive into the BBP mailbag. But, guys, NFL draft. Is Thursday, Friday, Saturday shaping up to be what is expected? A huge turnout for the Bearcats. Is this going to be one of the biggest 3-day stretches in Bearcat sports ever, if you will?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I've been saying it's the most impactful weekend in the history of the program because it's the last box to check. They've won at an elite level. They've made the playoff. They've shown they've had staying power. With an NY6 bowl and then the playoff in back-to-back years. The last thing is, and the Big 12 is happening now. The last thing to be able to tell recruits is we can make all of your dreams come true here. And that's about to happen, especially Thursday, what happens early with Sauce, but Thursday, Friday, Saturday in general.
Aaron, a lot of build up to this. This is kind of an exciting weekend for me. It's exciting for me because I want to be able to just actually sit down in front of a television screen and take in what is going to be an awesome draft, 3 straight days of excitement filled. But, because it's been a bit of hectic back-to-back weekends for me. But, Aaron, what are you most looking forward to when Thursday comes around, when Friday's there, and when Saturday hits in?
I'm looking forward to just seeing how many names are actually called. I mean, if it ends up being the 9 names that we expect to be called during this NFL draft. And I know I feel like we started with 7 and then got to 8, and now we I think we're landed pretty solidly at 9. And if it does indeed end up being 9 names called, back to Chad's original point, how's that not the biggest, like the most impactful weekend outside of the national champion, or not the national championship, but the Cotton Bowl itself?
Yeah, I mean, you think about it, and when Curtis Brooks' name keeps getting brought up, I think we were touching on it as defensive MVPs that we were mentioning this past year. I think he's someone that deserves even more talk than what he's slowly starting to get. I mean, Fickle mentioned him all the time. He's a guy that I believe it was a Bengals guy that I follow on Twitter had a string of video
Joe
posts about
Goodberry.
Brooks. Yeah, Joe Goodberry. A string of posts just back to back to back to back of how many plays that Brooks really had that dominated every single game. And you think about it, like even that Navy game. If you remember that Navy game at the end of the first half, he had first what was it? The tackle for loss, and then he had another one that ended up in a fumble and a recovery, and all of a sudden, instead of Navy getting points right before half, it's the Bearcats getting points. He affected the game so many ways, especially right up the middle. So it's great to hear his name starting to get a rise. Is he someone that you guys see as, maybe might get drafted higher than expected? Or I know, Chad, you guys mentioned Brian Cook's name is slowly making a rise as well. Who do you see as possibly the biggest mover for the Bearcats just early, this early in the week of draft week?
I think the interesting one to watch is Pierce.
Yeah.
Because he has all of the things that you want. Like every possible box is checked with Alec Pierce. And guys like that, typically, like you see teams or you'll see a team that finds all of those boxes being checked more valuable than everybody else. And as they always say on the draft, like it only takes one, right? Mm-hmm. I don't necessarily know that I'm to the point of saying Alec is going to be a first-round guy, but I would not be surprised very early in the second to see his name pop up and people to be like, "Oh, wow!" Like he was up the list more than we realized.
Aaron, who you got?
I mean, Chad kind of stole my thunder there a little bit, but
good.
I don't know. I mean, you look at all of these guys, and I feel like from where we initially even projected anybody, I mean, we were talking about, is Sauce going to be mid-round, first round, and now he's being mentioned in the top 10, top 5. You talk about, is Ritter going to be a first-round pick? And now they're still kind of shuffling. Is he going to be mid-first round? Is he going to be late first round? Where's he going to end up falling, as opposed to even arguing if he's going to be a first-round pick? Same with Pierce. People were talking about Pierce was going to be a third or a fourth round pick. Now they're talking about him as high as second round. I mean, you keep going on through these names, and I feel like that's been the trend where they've all just progressively kept moving up the board on nearly every name, to where no one right at this point is where they were, at least being slotted currently with anybody who's doing any type of mock-up, is where anywhere near where they were projected at the end of the season.
Yeah, I think Dez is obviously the interesting one, because after the combine and everything as well, is you all of a sudden heard him in the first round talks. But then you've heard other people talk about how, there could possibly, what you saw McShay post something today about, does the first quarterback get drafted with the 20th pick? It's just kind of weird scenarios that you never really know shake out. And this does seem like one of the more, it's tough to really pin down which each teams are looking at who as you continue to prepare for the draft. But, I'm going to be the first to admit, I'm not a huge NFL draft guru like Dave Simone is and others seem to be. But the fact that there's this much mention for Cincinnati just is really, it's still mind-boggling. I mean, you think back, 3 years ago, the first player from the University of Cincinnati to leave early as a junior decided to make that decision, and Michael Warren. Then you saw the next season, you had another one leave early in James Hudson. Now this year, you've got 2 leaving early. It just seems like a snowball effect, kind of on the lines of the same trajectory of what Luke just constantly says is, we want to be a team playing for championships. We want to win championships. We want to be a top 10 team. We want to be a top 10 program. It just seems like that's the progression, and things are starting to head that way as well. So I don't know. It's gonna be a memorable weekend. I don't know if you guys have heard anything else as far as where Chad. I know, how deep into the NFL draft are you as far as
I haven't, like, not a ton. There's been a lot going on over the past 10 days that
there has.
Sitting down and getting to do draft homework has not exactly been of the highest priority. So I will say, like, you know, the wild thing to me is every day, NFL Network and ESPN has something to say about Sauce or Dez or, you know, some of these guys that they consider, you know, sleepers or mid-round guys, Alec Pierce, like the list goes on and on.
Right.
This is not a time of the year that UC gets a lot of the coverage, right? Like this is, they get a lot of the coverage for winning games in August, you know, August through December. But this time of year, you don't hear UC talked about a lot. So every day, like I'll be working and I'll have my headphones on, listening to something, podcast or whatever, and I'll kind of have like a side eye on the TV that's over here in my office.
Right.
And you look and there's Cincinnati.
Right.
And then you look away and you do some work and you look back and there's Cincinnati again. And it's like the advertisement, the hype that this program is getting over the 3 months since the end of the season, and especially the last like 3 weeks, you can't put a price on it. It's incredible.
Yeah, I mean, kind of saw it in your guys' interview with Braden Moore a little bit about how, you know, it's just another step in that direction. You know, how he noticed all these former players getting drafted into the NFL and having, you know, success early in their careers in the NFL, whether it be on special teams or getting back up fourth and down on the active rosters. And now Brian Cook's getting a big mention. So just your player, your position in particular, if you're able to make that connection, it's only going to be even bigger. So I think it's huge. So I'm excited as the week wears on, because this is kind of what we've mentioned numerous times, is that it's going to be a big showcase of Cincinnati. And when Thursday comes, it's going to be an even bigger showcase of Cincinnati. And I hope Sauce is all decked out, all iced out, because it's going to be awesome seeing him get his name called and hugging Luke and then heading up onto the stage. So a lot of excitement as that continues to wear on. But aside from that, I think it's just more about what's going to be coming up in the future, because you see today, obviously we mentioned it on last week's pod, is the fact that Corey Kiner, officially a Bearcat. So just another step in what this team is doing to get pro prospects on the team and then develop them and take them to the next level. Because we constantly got that question of how many pro prospects do we see on the team? You know, who can you forecast? And now all of a sudden Corey Kiner gets added, and he's right up there on the top of the list, probably with some of the others. So I don't know, a lot of things, excitement brewing as it continues to wear on. And the NFL draft, man, it's a long thing, and it's normally just one of those where it's, you know, the summer's starting to get that feeling in the air, and it's just kind of on in the background. But now all the Bearcat fans get to sit down and actually pay very close attention to it. So I'm excited to hear all the.
And more importantly, like the first 2 days, like the UC portion has generally been on Saturday. You know, 4, 5, 6, 7. Those rounds are kind of where the UC guys have fallen for the most part of late. Now you're going to get UC talked about Thursday night for a lot of the first round, because you're going to have Sauce and the question of where Sauce is going to go. And then as soon as that question is answered, the talk's going to be who's the first quarterback.
Right.
You know, and if you get, hypothetically, you get Sauce in the top 3 or 5 and becomes the highest draft pick in program history, and then you also get Dez as like QB1, if somebody has him ranked there and jumps up and takes him, like you couldn't make up how big that would be for the program. Like you couldn't over exaggerate how big that would be if you have those two things happen. And even with Dez, like it doesn't necessarily have to be QB1. If he's just, a first rounder,
right?
That speaks volumes for, where this program has elevated to.
No, I mean, you even look at it like this. So, take into effect, I don't live in Cincinnati, and I live in Indiana.
Correct.
No, I don't. I live in Indiana, and
You do.
I've gone different places. Like this past weekend, I was down in Scottsdale, Arizona, and even 3 years ago, my friends probably couldn't name 4 players on the Bearcats. Maybe even like 3 for some of them. But this weekend, every question constantly was about, what are your thoughts on Sauce? What about Alec? Just constantly naming all these names that are getting talked about and promoted. And, it's just the fact that that's a budding thing and it's only going to continue is now the fact that when you do break down Curtis Brooks' tape, you see, wow, okay, when we actually break down this tape or Brian Cook's tape, you see how good they actually are. So then that might lead to, okay, now we're going to break down Javon Hicks' tape. Let's break down Malik Van's tape. Let's break down player X, player Y, Jabari Taylor, and just kind of see, wow, okay, we can actually dive in a little bit further on Cincinnati and see what the staff has been able to do, crafting and developing these players into NFL prospects. So I don't know. It's going to be exciting. Aaron, I think you want what? Brian Cook on the Bengals. That would probably be the one that you would say has the best opportunity to stay within the state there in Cincinnati.
Well, yeah, I mean, you have 2 safeties coming off contract years right now between Le'Veon Bell and Jesse Bates. So it would be probably the best shot as far as landing and sticking around, whether that be even as a backup next year or otherwise. But I don't know. I mean, you're still talking about 9 guys. So, there's interior defensive line that the Bengals could certainly use help with. I don't know that Beavers is a great fit for the Bengals defense, but Maje wouldn't be. I don't know that Maje would be the worst thing for the Bengals. Alec Pierce, he wouldn't start, obviously, as you got a phenomenal receiving core with the Bengals. Right. But if anybody goes down, you have quite a drop off right now. So I wouldn't be terribly upset if an Alec Pierce. There's no way I don't think he falls to the 3rd round to the Bengals, all the way down at that point. But if he's still hanging around in the 3rd round, I wouldn't be upset with them to pull the trigger there. So. I don't know. Those are probably the ones that stick out the most for me.
I think Brooks should be a good fit. I really do.
Yeah.
Maje, I don't know as much because Osahi what's that the guy's name? The guy that got hurt in training camp.
I can't remember his name off the top of my head. You caught me off guard. Osai, Joseph Osai.
Osai. So they have a Maje that was just out hurt last year. I don't know if you take because they're very similar. They're undersized. They're speed rushers.
But you can't ever have enough edge guys, right?
Sure, but I don't know if you take another one that's so similar.
Not that high either.
Right.
How about Ford?
That's all. Not that I think. I mean,
Ford's a name I haven't really heard much of. I'll say Ford and Beavers are the 2 that have kind of, you got the pop early and a couple of stats here and there from the 2 of them.
I think Beavers, though, is because it has to be a situational fit, right? Yeah. Because he's kind of a scheme style linebacker, as you're looking for probably more of that 3-4 defense where he kind of slots in as your as a linebacker in that type of system. So it's not necessarily a guy that could be drafted on any team. Mm-hmm. That said, though, the the problem you run into with Ford not being mentioned a ton is I don't feel like anybody's been talking about any of these running backs a ton.
Yeah, right.
I mean, running backs at this point are a dime a dozen, and it's, kind of the both sides of the coin there.
Yeah, no, I agree. So either way, we're going to be talking a lot about the Bearcats on next week's episode. A lot about how, possible fits, how is Dez going to be able to compete against the Bengals and year one in Pittsburgh and different things of that sort. There's going to be a lot of conversations next week, but I just thought we had to at least talk about it to open because it's the beginning of a monster week, and one that is going to really be solidified by the end of it. And I do see all the players getting drafted. Yeah,
I think all 9 get drafted. Hopefully, we'll have a little draft preview segment tomorrow to release for you guys. I'm working on a guest.
Oh,
it's got a big office in the Linder Center, 7th floor. Try to get to hear from him and see how his week goes this week, what it looks like as he prepares to head to Vegas and take in the draft. It'll be interesting.
Not a bad place to go. Gosh, I think Sauce is going to look pretty good. I think he's going to come out possibly
here's
might
the thing.
win best dress.
That's the thing. He's going to be fresh to death. Like, he's going to have the chain. He's got the look about him. Like, he's going to steal the show in that regard for sure.
Especially because he has been talking so much, but kind of like talking in a good way, just having that air of confidence about him. So he might not have like a super loud, bright, and colorful suit, but he's going to be.
No, it's going to be sharp.
Yeah, it's going to be. He's just going to look like just complete business with a little bit of ice on it. So or a lot of ice, if you will. So I'm excited for it. Probably a lot.
The grill, the necklace. He's going to be iced out. Make no mistake about that.
You got the watch, maybe.
Yeah, like he's going to be accessorized to the highest degree.
Like,
that's the thing about him, though, man. Like, he pulls it off. Like, it looks like he's supposed to be iced out. A lot of guys, it looks forced. You know what I mean? You're like, come on, bro. Like, what are we doing here?
Does that have anything to do with him looking like the character from The Incredibles?
Maybe. Maybe it's just he's so long that nothing looks like oversized. Like, it doesn't look out of place. I think even like the sauce is as gaudy as that is. It just looks right on him. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, it fits. It fills the space perfectly, if you will.
Right. And the way he's filled out too, it's kind of like, I mean, like his suits that we've seen him in recently, just since the draft coverage has come out. He's just looks good, looks fittable for a top 10 NFL pick.
On that point, Brent, I agree, because if he's wearing that chain at $160 freshman year,
it looks a little ridiculous, right? It looks a little ridiculous. It
doesn't look the same.
Probably weigh him down a little bit too. He'd be hunched over the whole time. But no, it'll be looking good. I'm interested.
I can already tell you what's going to be my favorite part.
What is
of the draft? It's going to be Brady on national TV.
Oh yeah.
The 4th member of this podcast is going to get his glow up on national TV at Sauce's table.
Is Brady going to wear any ice, do we think?
Should we call him?
I think we should. Oh, send him like a like a BCJ medallion and just have
I need to get one. I need to get some BCJ ice. If there's a jeweler out there that wants to do some promotional BCJ ice, I'll wear it on the podcast every night.
Aaron, you're not gonna say you'd rock a little BCJ ice.
Come on. Maybe a 3-finger ring with BCJ.
Oh, hell no.
Ooh, just say BCJ, and
There
then the other one,
no 3-finger ring ever.
It'll be like, the Rick James ring that he punched at Charlie Murphy in the forehead with, and it said Unity.
But it would say BCJ.
Yeah,
right.
Or just get the logo, on a iced out on a ring.
Ooh.
Bang somebody in the head. They just got the BCJ logo on their forehead.
Ooh, I'm liking the sound of this.
So it would have to be backwards.
Yeah, of course.
Look good. Look good.
Yeah, I mean,
You could also use it for wax seals.
I don't think I've got all the drip, Jeffrey Inman. I have all the drip. If I had a BCJ iced out chain, come on.
I think you're pretty iced out, Chad. You've got some good flow for sure, especially when you randomly pop up on Twitter on other people's feeds in like a video or something. Always decked out in the good BCJ.
Oh, dude, I'm all over. Like, if you look at the Collier videos and the Tyler McKinley videos, from this weekend, I'm all over those videos. You got to pay attention along the baseline.
Is that the Chad having his face superimposed on the guy in the robe? Dance?
No, that's not it. No, that's me out there grinding, Aaron. While you're mowing the grass in your zero turn. While you're out there mowing the grass in the zero turn, I'm out on the road making things happen, son. Well, see, I'll show you in a second the problem with the hat, Jeffrey. I would prefer to wear the hat forwards in the podcast.
But there's a but.
Shadow.
It's the shadow. I guess I need to get a light that shoots up, like from the corner of my desk, because this doesn't look good.
Yeah.
Right? Like
you look a little mysterious, though. You know.
I'd have to do the podcast like this if I wore the hat forward.
Then and have a little snarl, and then you'll be the hidden gem of the draft, Curtis Brooks. There you go. Lock it in.
I mean, so that way, if I do it this way, I don't have the shadow. Like if I wore it forwards, it would make more sense because the logo would be front facing, and you wouldn't have to do anything like stretch out and show off the new BCJ quarter zip that I'm rocking tonight from 513 shirts. The new Bearcat Journal collection is in. Get yourself to 513shirts.com. Get yourself the quarter zip. I got the polo right over there on the other side. Maybe I'll do a wardrobe change in the middle of the show and rock the polo the second half.
There we go.
Yeah.
And then do it like without telling anyone and see if anyone noticed. We'll see.
There you go. I'm sure they would. It's the red one, so it's
that'd be pretty bright.
It's quite a contrast to the
pretty bright there. Well, anything more on the draft, guys? Because obviously we can just it's been 2 months leading up of just constant talk about this and prospects and where X player might go and first round, second round, third round, top 100, top 150. So I think it's just time for the draft to come, and then we can break down what's happening after that. But had to touch on it. It's exciting. Chad, would you say it's above the appearance in the Cotton Bowl?
In terms of like national perception, no. But in terms of like the impact that it has on recruiting, I think it's more important because again, we've talked about this before. This is what kids want, man. They want to commit to you knowing they're going to have their shot to make it in the NFL. Like that's the goal. That's what they aspire to. We may not think of it that way as fans, but that's what they want. Like they want to play in the league, and you give them a chance to play in the league and show them you come here and you show out, and you can be a top 5 pick, or you can be the number 1 player at your position. Like that stuff all matters a lot when you're selling kids. Like when you're getting a kid to fall in love with you, right? Because that's what this comes down to. You got to get the recruit to fall in love with their vision of success. Right. And they all want to go play at the next level and make millions of dollars and support their mom. And, like that's the dream. And this weekend is going to be an opportunity for Cincinnati to show, look, the dream is very real here.
I think the main thing I'm going to miss of the buildup is, Dan Orlovsky's continuous standing of Desmond Ridder. I love it. Love it. Thank you, Dan Orlovsky, for that. Saw him actually in the press box. I forget which game it was, and he is tall. Can't confirm the man is tall.
You didn't point him out.
You were somewhere. I was walking to the elevator and he was leaving. So could have been one of those where it was like after the game and I don't know, figuring it out. But yeah, the man's tall. That's it. Lock it in. And whoever
Doesn't know where the back of the end zone is either.
Oh man, Dan, you heard that? Didn't come out of my mouth. But no, and then of course Pro Football Focus, man. They are a big promoter of the Bearcats as well because the numbers don't lie. And the analytics definitely back up the fact that the Bearcats are true talents, and just can't wait to see where they go now. And I do hope for the sake of every one of the NFL fans out there, at least one of them falls on your team, and the odds are pretty strong, 9 of them. So we'll see. I guess the other big news of the day, obviously, Corey Kiner officially a Bearcat. There's no worries about that, but it raises the question to me now is the fact that May 1st as well is for football players to enter the portal if they need to, this, that, and the other. It seems like there was a lot of buzz in the portal on the football side of things. We've been talking about the basketball side of the portal for a long time, but you saw a lot of movement on the football side of things as well today. Chad, I know this is obviously it'll be a forecasting thing, but could you see the possibility of another player within the next few odd days heading in there that Cincinnati might have some sort of a feel towards, or is that kind of, would you say Kiner was the one and now it's like kind of the recruiting side of things?
Yeah, I mean, Kiner was the one that we knew if he went in the portal, Cincinnati was instantly going to have interest.
Right.
I don't know of any others at this point. I think it's just going to be a matter of if they see guys at defensive end, if they see guys at corner, like they're going to do their due diligence, see if they've got any connections, see where things, might fall. And then decide if they want to make a play or not. There's nothing really at this point that I'm like, okay, I got my eye on this guy, or okay, let's see how this plays out. But we're seeing a lot more guys this year enter the portal after spring ball than we saw a year ago. So that part's going to be fascinating.
It really
and
is.
A lot of teams had their spring game Saturday, 2 days ago. So you could see even more names hitting the portal that are of, at least like positional interest as we go through these next couple weeks.
It was good to hear. I believe this is Luke's first comments about it, obviously, because it was made official today. He said, "I'm excited to welcome Corey and his family to our Cincinnati football program. Corey is a tough, explosive, and smart football player who we expect to have an immediate impact on our football team. He has a tremendous drive to succeed on and off the field. I know he's excited to come home and play in front of friends and family at Nippert Stadium, and we are thrilled to have him." So, it's been a lot of talk about it, a lot of breaking down of the addition of Corey Kiner, and yet again, here we are talking about another big-time athlete coming in to carry the torch of what all these great players have done before. So, Kiner official.
Four-star Jaden Thompson, four-star Lenny Taylor.
Josh Wiley.
Four-star Josh. Well, I think Josh was a high 3, unfortunately. I don't think he made a 4.
Jaheim.
Well, I'm just talking on offense.
Oh, on offense, yeah.
Yeah, and then four-star Corey Kiner. You've got wide receiver, tight end, running back, all in that 4-star range. Now on your offense,
Evan Prater too.
4-star Evan Prater. That all of a sudden you look around the offense with the weapons, and you're like, huh. The talent is right up there with most of college football.
And the entire starting offensive line is back. So go ahead and lock that one in. There'll be a lot of excitement. But do we do a little timestamp? Are we ready to move on to?
Well, one thing I wanted to bring up, I ran across this tweet, and I know we talked about this earlier in the podcast, as far as the free advertising goes with all this commercialization and everything. Mm-hmm. But there was, I had saved this earlier this week, but there was a record-breaking 25,000 plus applications for the upcoming academic year, up 10% versus 2021. That came actually from Nick Bauer, but that was just outrageous to see the applications up that high for UC. So that's just goes to show that this has been nothing but a giant commercial for UC this year.
Yeah, the entire thing has.
And that's what you say to that chump professor from UC Claremont every year that says, wow, they're spending too much money on athletics. Yeah, it's a commercial so that they can pay your salary, Einstein.
Or whoever writes the op-ed pieces for the school paper.
Well, but it's always that one guy from UC Claremont that they go to for the faculty. The faculty has a problem. Blah, blah, blah. Shut up, nerds.
Well, they shouldn't have a problem anymore if it continues up this path. So
no, they still will. They still will.
Yeah, true. Those people always have to find something to complain about, and that they will. A little time for a timestamp, unless you guys have anything else football related. We'll dive into some basketball talk.
Brent, are you curious to explore what lies beyond standard craft beer?
Yeah.
You could take a trip to Urban Artifact. They don't make beer. They make fruit tarts.
Wow.
Come see what the world of real fruit beer has to offer. Swing by Urban Artifacts, Northside Tap Room. Mention Bearcat Journal. Get $2 off a flight of 4 tasters. What you got tonight? Hey, Aaron.
I went back to teak.
Wow, Aaron, for the first time ever.
Oh, we hit it. We hit it at the same time. Well done.
And you know what?
Same page tonight, boys.
I'm gonna say a huge shout out to Urban Artifact, because after the weekend I just had, like, the last thing I wanted to do tonight was partake in some libations. But hey, it's all for you and all for the red vino.
It's refreshing, right? It's refreshing. It's not a heavy libation. It's a light, refreshing libation.
Yeah,
I did get my first tweet this weekend referencing that they were drinking an Urban Artifact.
Really?
And they had a gadget.
Oh,
trying to see if I have that.
I mean, it's not. There can't be that much in your mentions, right?
No, there's not. It was Brandon Norbeck. I just didn't have the app open. I'm sorry.
Okay.
It was Brandon Norbeck. So shout out to Brandon Norbeck for trying the Urban Artifact this weekend.
And
right.
For weekends like this, I try and hide my Twitter so that I have no chance of opening it up and just completely stay away. Whatever news I need will somehow matriculate back to me some way, somehow. So big shout out to Urban Artifact. Big shout out to all of our sponsors. But time to roll into basketball. We did not mention because it didn't happen before this. Rob Phinisee has committed since we last talked. Chad, I think you and Dave might have mentioned.
That feels like 3 weeks ago.
Rob?
That's the kind that's the kind of week that, like, the past 10 days
felt like
has
3
just
weeks
been.
ago. Yeah, I know.
There's so much that's been happening.
What, that was Wednesday night? I
think so, yeah.
Yeah, dropped his commitment. Man. But it's a Rob Phinisee. The main thing I liked about him is the fact that when you go back,
Indiana guy, you're an Indiana fan.
Yeah, it's my alumnus, but people hated me.
Well, I'm just saying, enlighten me on him. Like you know, you've watched him for 4 years.
Yeah, well, yeah. The
words alma mater, Brent.
Alma mater. Yeah, I'm the alumnus, right?
Yes.
Yeah. There you go.
Right.
But so the thing about
Midas Whale.
I would go to games at Assembly Hall at IU wearing Cincinnati gear, and like people just hated me for it. But anyway, that's a different story for a different time. But Rob Phinisee, he was a guy where you saw him start many games as a true freshman, and you kind of thought he was going to take off and be like the next Yogi Ferrell type, just, point guard star under Archie Miller at IU. The thing is, a lot of my IU friends kind of say that Archie's coaching tactics were a little combative with maybe what Rob needed or something along those lines. But he had a strong freshman year. This past season, numbers were a little down, but they brought in Xavier Johnson, Pitt transfer, big time guy. So Obviously the numbers will falter a little bit, but you look back at Mike Woodson and the things that he was saying about Rob early in the season is that, Rob understands how much we need him and how much I believe in him and how much faith I have in him and how much he needs to start shooting the ball more. And we, if the first few shots don't go in, keep shooting it because we believe in you. So, kind of just that faith and that trust in your point guard like Rob is big. And I think that you saw in everyone's mentions once he committed, it was just like, good luck, Rob, go kill him. You're going to do great. Like nothing but positivity coming out of it. You saw Dane Fife had some mentions about it, just the main thing that hurt him this past season was an injury, and it was a plantar fascia or, whatever it is. And it kind of derailed. Yeah. It kind of derailed the start that he was beginning to string together some good games. He had a solid game against Notre Dame where he hit a three in like closing minutes of the game to kind of boost them ahead and pull out the win. And then of course he also had the huge game against Purdue where he scored 17 points in the first half and then came back in the second half, didn't score, but hit the game winner. And so it's kind of one of those where, he has the ability to fill it up. He was 4 for 7 from deep in that game. Then the injury happened, was out 10 games, but the thing that he obviously has is defense. I think a lot of people would say he's one of the better perimeter defenders in the Big Ten last year. And he just has so much experience. I mean, talking about a guy that played in the Big Ten at IU, a storied program. He was recruited by a lot of big name schools. There's a lot of things to like. And if he can continue to stay healthy and kind of find his role and fit the mold of toughness and defense on the perimeter and knocking down some timely shots, I don't see how this is going to be too. I like it personally. I think it was a great addition. You want toughness. If Mike Roberts is going to be the one really pumping him up, and then Wes Miller is point guard himself, and he sees some things that he likes in there in Rob, then he's going to bring him in. I also think a lot of people mentioned the smaller backcourt. And I want your guys' take on this with Rob and David DeJulius out there. But I don't think if it was that big of an issue, I don't think the staff would have brought in Rob. And so
here's the thing.
Yeah.
You know this from watching a bunch of Indiana games. Rob doesn't play small.
No.
Rob can guard 1 through 3. Like
right.
He's not a guy that the problem with playing a small backcourt is if they play small and you have teams just shooting over the top of you. Like
right.
That's where the problem becomes, hard to escape because you don't have the length and the ability to just shut a team down or to slow a team down. And you guys probably get sick of me talking about this, but what matters to me more than anything is if you have a team that's good enough to compete, the easiest path to winning for me is shutting teams down over the final 5 minutes of a game.
Right.
And being able to get those stops late. And Cincinnati didn't have that ability in their backcourt last year. They couldn't just buckle down and take you out of what you wanted to do and make you uncomfortable at the end of games. And Rob, as a point guard, is the head of the snake in that, situation. So you're going to have the ability with Rob to take away the opponent's best perimeter player. Now, combine that with Newman. So let's say their best perimeter player is a 3. Now you have Newman's ability to take that guy away, and Rob can handle the 1 or the 2. And whoever the second best scoring option is. Right. And I thought if you watched last year, I thought David played good defense for most of the season.
Oh, I think he had some games where he was so locked in at the end of the games. At Wichita State is one game that comes to mind where he was just really amped up on both sides of the ball. I agree. I thought he played really good defense.
So if Dave is now guarding the third best player on the perimeter, things all just kind of slide into place a lot better than they did last year, where you were forcing guys to do things that they weren't capable of.
Right.
Like you were demanding, you have to do this if we're going to be successful. and they just didn't have it in them. So now you're correcting that already on the perimeter. And then if they can finish out this last piece that was on campus this weekend,
well, we're gonna
now
talk
all of a
about that.
sudden, now all of a sudden, you just look a lot different as we're getting ready to start looking fully ahead and finding opponents and scheduling and all that stuff. Like now you're starting to feel a lot better about where things are at.
Yeah, Aaron, your thoughts on the addition of Rob Phinisee, and then of course kind of just the thoughts of a shorter backcourt, which I'm not going to compare this team to Baylor from 2 years ago because that was an offensive juggernaut. They were able to do it offensively and then defensively as well. But they had 3 starting guards in their lineup that were all 6'4" or shorter. You know, 6'1", 6'2", and then 6'4", I believe. If you think Masio Teague is 6'4". But Aaron, your thoughts on the addition of Rob, and then of course just kind of how you think he fits in the backcourt with David DeJulius.
Well, of course, I'm not surprised by you being the eternal optimist that you are totally happy about the move, because I am also happy about the move, but I'm just not surprised that, of course, you were just.
You're afraid of his free throw shooting. There's no doubt about that. You're afraid of his shooting percentages.
Am overall. I? Because everyone on the team already. We're used to bad free throw percentages. I'm not worried about free throw. We've lived 2 decades of bad free throw percentages. Right. Like I'm okay with that. For me though, and I brought this up on the nightcap, and I think it's worth mentioning again. The night that that he announced that he was going to be coming here, is that everyone wants to point at his numbers over the course of his time in Indiana, which that's all you have to go by. I totally understand that. What I think kind of gets lost is how high he was as a recruit when he came out. I believe he was a 4-star recruit when he went to Indiana. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. I mean, he was obviously injured, but there was also some coaching changes done during his time at Indiana. And you just wonder how much kind of got lost in that shuffle of, being young in the system and then having to switch systems. And, maybe it just wasn't a good marriage for player and coach. And obviously something was broken enough for him to want to transfer out of Indiana. So, maybe this is a time where he kind of got to experience that whole free agency thing where it's like, I need to find the system that's right for me, where I get along with the coach who's going to look for the most I can bring to a team. And I think that you have an opportunity with a guy who at some point was thought of as a very skilled player to maybe tap into some of that skill that has kind of gotten lost in some of the shuffle of coaching over the years.
So he had offers out of high school from Indiana, Georgetown, Ohio State, Purdue, Virginia, and I'm sure there's many more. But I mean, that's a good offer list. It's a really good offer list,
Yeah.
And if he was coming in straight out of high school, there'll be a lot of excitement. But yes, like you said, now you have all these stats throughout his 4 years at IU that kind of you kind of look at a little bit. But he always had a good assist to turnover ratio, which is what obviously Coach Miller really liked that out of Micah last year as well. Plays really good defense on the perimeter. I think some of the tweets I was seeing was that if you were a coach in the Big Ten this past season, you feared seeing Rob Phinisee defending your backcourt throughout the game. So a lot of positives to bring out of it. And then of course we touched on that Purdue game a lot, but I mean, Indiana had just lost, I think it was like 10 straight to Purdue. Since 2016 was the last time they beat Purdue. And Rob scored 17 in the first half. And then kind of goes quiet in the second. But then with the game on the line, Woodson drew up a play for Trace Jackson Davis. And I believe Rob was the one who said, no, I want to shoot the shot. He's from Lafayette. He wants to be able to take down the Boilermakers, and he knocked down the shot. And I mean, he was being hoisted up by all the fans. I mean, he's a guy that's loved by the fan base. Just one that hey, maybe in this new change of scenery, the numbers do reflect the type of play that he has. So
yes,
we'll let's see what comes out of that. But Rob Phinisee is a good player.
ideally too, with the roster that's being assembled currently, ideally he won't have to shoot it that much unless they're actually getting that out of him. You know what I mean? So like that isn't necessarily a thing that has to happen for him. If he's chipping in, anywhere between 6 and 10, I think that you're doing just fine.
I mean, think about all the open looks that Micah had last year, and even Mikey as well. It just, if those are available for Rob and he's able to knock them down, then who knows? Chad and Aaron, I want to know your thoughts. Another thing that you think about with David and Rob out there, I don't know if this is going to lead to Wes trying to install more of his pressing defense, if you will. I don't know if you want more length out there when you press, or if you want that speed that the two guards will kind of have out on the perimeter as well. But I don't know. It seems as if they want to press. They've got two guys at the head of the snake, if you will, that could really sit down and defend you in the backcourt. Chad, do you think they'll go to the press more? Or no?
The interest, I think they will. Like Wes wants to, certainly. Right. Where you get in trouble with the press is doing it with two guys that teams can just throw over, right? Like, that's where it becomes a problem, because you never get a chance to really get into it, because teams are just throwing over your guards before, they really have a chance to set the pressure, set the trap. I think with Rob and David, you could do more token pressure, where essentially you're just trying to keep the team from getting in their offense until 16, 17 seconds left on the shot clock, because you make them work to get it over the timeline. They get it over the timeline in 22 seconds. Then they have to set up into the switch from your standard half court off. You've got to switch from your press break offense into your standard half court offense. That takes a couple seconds. And now you're at 16, 17 seconds for teams to run their stuff, which benefits the defense, because then it's difficult to get into the second layer of moving the defense from side to side. That's what you're trying to do. Get the ball from one side, reverse it, get it back to the other side. Now you're making the defense help and scramble. And if you get teams down to 15, 16 seconds when they're just getting started, now they're kind of rushing a little bit. Now, it plays into your hands. Where it could be a problem is trying to run and jump, or trying to really trap teams full court. The smaller guys make that a little bit more difficult.
Well, it's one of those as well where you also have that experience on the bench in Mike Adams-Woods, who does have good defense and does have good length, who could come in if foul trouble were to add up, if you were to start pressing a little bit more. I don't know if that was something that had some sort of effect this past season, or obviously it was just first season, not a lot of practice time, but it'll be interesting to see what they do as far as getting him out there. Chad, did you hear anything else from the people within Cincinnati, how they felt about Rob coming and picking the squad? He's officially signed, correct? So I believe they're able to at least say some things off the record if need be. You don't have to mention any names, but they probably had to be pretty excited with the addition of Phinisee.
Yeah, I mean, the staff they were looking for toughness. They were looking for defense. This is what they were looking for in terms of the type of intangibles that they were looking to add to this roster. I think, we've talked about this. I think you've got a roster of good guys. I think you've got a roster of guys that try hard. But the reality is, it goes back to, again, what I like. Toughness is being able to grind out stops in the final 5 minutes of a game to get a win.
Right.
That's toughness. It's not, people hear toughness and they think of who's going to win in a fight.
Air kicks.
Right. While that is some of it, the reality is the toughness that they're talking about is functional. It's, it's something that impacts winning and losing in basketball games. It's getting on the floor for 50-50 balls. It's making plays down the stretch on both ends of the floor. It's stepping to the line and hitting your free throws, when the pressure's on.
Right.
Those are functional toughness things that, let's be honest, this team lost a lot of close games. The functional toughness of last year's team was not a strength. The ability to really dial in the closing minutes of a game and get out of there, get out of an opponent's gym with a W. That's
right.
Functional toughness. And Rob Phinisee brings functional toughness to this roster. And guess what? Getting out of Greensboro and Tulsa and New Orleans with wins is a hell of a lot easier than getting out of West Lafayette and Ann Arbor and East Lansing. There's a significant difference there for Phinisee as he steps down a level for his final year.
Exactly. And another thing is, as a junior, he was a team captain, which is obviously you've seen it throughout the Cincinnati Bengals. That's an invaluable trait, is to have that leadership and have the ability to have the rest of your team really look to you for that leadership. So welcome, Rob Phinisee, big time. It's another thing where you go from a level up, if you will, the Big Ten Conference to the AAC, or level down, if you will. So, there's the constant debate on, is it harder to rise, take one of these, the Horizon League Player of the Year or, SoCon Player of the Year and bring him in. What's he going to do? Or how about a guy who played 100 games against high level competition? So Rob Phinisee in the fold. And sure, his offense might lack at times, and maybe it does take a little bit of a jump, but it's not really needed. You know what, Chad and Aaron? I think if the guy who was on campus this past weekend, and I believe finished up his visit today, were to decide to become a Bearcat, I think the offensive side of things gets a surely heightened jolt, and that's Landers Nolley, who was on campus today and yesterday, made a visit. And are these considered official visits, right? Or is it kind of a lingo that's not really refined? Or
hold on 1 second.
All right, Dave.
No, this is work stuff, not like, I'm just bored texting people. What was that again? I'm sorry.
Are these considered official visits? Is that what?
Yeah, they're official visits.
All right. Well, spill your knowledge on us. How?
Yeah, they're official. Like
Landers Nolley is what we're talking about.
Yeah, it's an official. It was an official visit.
Okay, so he was in town. Then went to the zoo. He's got a 3-year-old daughter who's obviously a big part of his life.
That was VIP content on the message board.
Oh, well, that's what happens when you let me talk and not you.
I'm sorry. I had an important work text that was coming through. I'm texting with somebody important. The official visit, I know, as his mom was here, his daughter was with him. They had a good time, from what I understand. Apparently, he went out with some of the old heads, DJ and a couple of those guys on Friday night when he got to town, and then did the standard visit stuff on Saturday outside of going to the zoo, and went to dinner with the staff last night. Was here through, I think, late morning. And then was traveling back to Atlanta with his daughter today. And, I guess this is the hurry up and wait portion of the process. I have not heard that a decision has been reached yet. I also have not heard of any other visits being set up. I know there was some questioning as to how this all went down. And it makes me wonder about the seriousness of the NC State stuff, right? Because from what I heard, no surprise, we've heard this from others before. the kid didn't have much desire to play in the American Athletic Conference again. But I think you look at, you had a connection with Chad Dollar, who recruited him at South Florida, recruited him again when he was at Georgia, when he entered the transfer portal. Now is recruiting him for a third time. So there was a lot of familiarity and interest there between Dollar and Nolley. I've also heard that Andre Morgan had a connection to his high school coach. Just a lot of familiarity between the staff and Landers. And when he didn't necessarily see exactly what he was looking for on the first two visits, I think that kind of opened the door for Cincinnati, who tried to get in there early and were told, probably not going to happen, to come back around the second time and say, look, we're what you're looking for. Like, don't let the fact that we're in the American get in the way of this. Like, the things that you are desiring, we have the ability to give you. And, I think that was important in reopening that door, or at least getting Cincinnati a chance to make their pitch. Now, did it work? We don't know yet. But I think from everything I've heard, they feel comfortable with the way the visit went. They feel comfortable with their connection to Landers Nolley. Now you just gotta, hope he goes home and thinks about it. And his daughter is like, Daddy, I want to go see Fiona again. Daddy, I like the giraffes. Like, and maybe that's enough to get him here to Cincinnati.
And we talk about offense and wanting a player to come in and have the length and the ability on the offensive end. I mean, he fits that mold perfectly. His very first collegiate game, actually at Virginia Tech, they played at Clemson. How about this? He dropped 30 points. He was 4 of 8 from 3.
Well, I mean, that's the thing that's important here, Brent.
Yeah.
He would be featured on offense here. At Memphis, right. He wasn't like, he was a guy, like one of their guys.
Right.
At Virginia Tech, he was kind of their guy as a true freshman. Averaged 15 points a game. He was first team all freshman ACC. And then at Memphis, it just kind of, they had a lot of other guys that needed the ball, and he kind of became like a second fiddle, if you will.
Right.
And he's looking to go back somewhere where he's going to be one of the feature guys on offense. And let's be honest with each other, he'd be right there with David as the best, one or two best offensive players on this team. And it would allow you to maybe slide Jeremiah down into a more comfortable position where he could be a more efficient scorer and still give you that double-digit scoring pop, but not be relied on. Like, I remember last year, man, if one of the two of Dave and Jeremiah wasn't on, it was a struggle. Like, it was a real struggle. So now, you stack another guy in there and add a fourth guy in there, and maybe Ezekpe, who would at this pace trend to be a double-digit scorer in the American.
Right.
And imagine how much different that roster looks last year if you have 4 double-digit scorers on average every night. And think about how many close games they had, where they didn't have that pop to get over the hump and put a team away.
By the way, you have Skillings and Reed coming off the bench.
Well, exactly. and you would potentially, have Micah
Hensley.
and Hensley. Well, and Newman and Nolley are, play the same position.
Vic.
So Vic, well, but what if, which one of those two is probably going to have to come off the bench? So now all of a sudden your bench gets stronger, your starting lineup gets stronger.
Yep.
And all of a sudden the team that takes the floor, and that's what I tried to express to people as everybody was freaking out. Like, who cares about being fast in the transfer portal? Get it right. And if they can land Nolley, they will have gotten the toughness at the head of the snake at point guard at Rob Phinisee. They will have added a 6'7" wing that can shoot and defend and rebound and makes you better in a lot of different ways. And they'll have added a 6'8", physical, aggressive big man
They can
They
knock
can
down
do a
a
lot of
mid-range
that can
jump
knock
shot.
down a mid-range shot. Look how different this team looks on the glass with Ezekpe and Nolley on the floor.
Yeah.
Both of those guys are 6-7 rebound a game guys. And all of a sudden, you're not getting bullied on the defensive glass. Teams aren't getting 24 points a game and second chance points, as was the case in some of their worst performances of the year.
Mm-hmm.
And now you have a roster that looks top to bottom very functional. Like, that's my new word this spring. Functional. Because a lot of things last year weren't functional. The roster wasn't functional. Their performance over the final 6 weeks of the season wasn't functional. Like, you've got to get back to being functional.
Yeah.
And Wes has so far with the 2 additions done that. And with the third one, if he can land Nolley, that's exactly what this roster was missing when you include those first 2 guys into what the roster looks like as it stands.
And for me, of course, there were a lot of hands that needed to get the ball at Memphis this past season. And I towards the end of the year, I would break Memphis down as one of probably the top 20 teams in the country. Maybe even better than that. I think Bartorvik had them as like top 5 over the last month and a half, going into that Gonzaga game where they were leading them at certain moments. So there was a lot of heavy talent on that team. But one of their biggest games when they were kind of really struggling to find their footing, and they went through the grind of playing these tough, at UCF, which was a loss, and then they play UCF and Tulane back-to-back games. But then it was that game at Houston, back in the middle of February, and he was their best player. He was the best player on the court. Scored 20 points in that game, 6 of 6 from the line, 4 or 5 from 3. Brought that offensive punch in a very physical, very tough game at Houston. And that was kind of the game that kind of springboarded them back into the talks of being this team that's going to make the NCAA tournament. And he was the one who stepped up and put out the performance that was needed in order to do that. So, I think he'd be an amazing addition. And I think that there's 2 guys, obviously, who came on visits recently. And Kalu, or Aaron, do you want to say Caillou? And, of course, Rob Phinisee.
I'm not allowed to say that anymore.
They came on their visits, and Wes was able to do what was necessary in order to bring them to the point of committing to the Bearcats. So that's 2 big time visits and 2 completions. We'll see how the third visit comes out. And Landers Nolley, he also was able to see kind of how the UC fan base is. He played against Wes Miller in 2 really good games this past season. So he's familiar with the players on the team and what they bring out to the court. So it's one to keep track on. Like you said, I don't think a decision's imminent as of right now. That got it on the second try right there. I mean his I had a long weekend. The brain cells are just slowly starting to come back. But no, it'll be fun to see, how this continues to wear on, because after his NC State visit, it sounded like all signs were pointing towards them possibly. And like you said, now some things have changed, and we'll see if the staff is able to lock him down, and he would be obviously a massive commitment and a big rise to the team. So we'll have to see how it comes out. And if you know how to really break down emojis, then just take a look at his last tweet, and let's see how good of a job you can do on that front, because one of those that just keep you thinking. That's it for the portal. I think portal talks as of now. I think Davis brought out his top 5 which was kind of funny because it only had 4 pictures on it, and he said, "Oh, by the way, BYU is also a part of this top 5, but they just aren't in the picture," which is kind of funny. And then McNeil decided he's going to go to Ohio State. So it's all shaken out and getting figured out. But Landers Nolley was just obviously a huge surprise visitor this weekend, and a huge visitor on all fronts. So we'll see how that shakes out. Chad, you were in town in Indiana this past weekend, and
I was.
You were yet again able to see what, 2 weeks ago, three weeks ago was Rayvon. You were in person.
2 weeks
J10?
ago. Yeah, 2 weeks ago I was there. Got to see Rayvon play 3 games. I think I caught of Rayvon that weekend, and he was outstanding all weekend. So
Right.
the Brendel curse did not strike 2 weekends ago. It tends to happen on the fringe guys.
Yeah.
Like the guys that I really need to get an evaluation on. Like Rayvon's a top 50 kid. Like you don't need a detail, like overly detailed,
right.
like, deep dive into his evaluation.
But it feels good to get there and then be
sure. And then this week it was 3 guys in particular. One was kind of a bit of a surprise in Arrington Page. But I got a nice long look at Isaiah Collier, and then a brief look at Tyler McKinley. Whew. Both of those guys, Collier and McKinley, they would make a lot of difference in Clifton. A lot of difference. Collier, of course, 23. McKinley, the 2024 power forward from Walnut Hills. So, yeah.
Tell us more about Collier. Obviously, the passing ability is off the charts, but what is it this past weekend that kind of just, this guy?
It's the passing. He did have a big second half to the weekend shooting the ball.
Right.
He's not a knockdown shooter by any stretch, but to see him go 6 for 12 on Saturday night and then come back on Sunday morning and knock down 4 of 6, and different styles too. Some off the pull up, some off the catch and shoot. Getting to see him do it in a couple different ways makes you feel like at least it's in there. Like he might not be consistent at it yet, but he's got a decent looking jump shot. It doesn't look broken by any stretch of the imagination.
Right.
So Walnut Hills, yeah. That's what I said, right?
You said
that's what I thought. I just wanted to make sure. Sometimes I say stuff, my brain just short circuits, and I say things I don't mean.
I think Stephen was referencing he's also at Walnut Hills.
Oh yeah. Congratulations, Stephen. They are smart as hell. McKinley, smart as hell. Jawan Briggs, smart as hell. Stephen, undecided. We can't confirm or deny that at this point. Back to Nolley real quick. He's a small forward. So like traditional
wing, right?
Small forward, 6'7" wing, can shoot it, long, good defender on the perimeter. He's a 2 or a 3. I'd lean more towards a 3. Just kidding, Steven. It's just a joke. It's okay. We joke a lot here. That's what we do. But
I like what Nolley does too. His pull-up J's are good too. But yeah, let's continue.
Yeah. Collier, just, my goodness, the vision he has with the ball in his hands is next level, and that's why most of the high major coaches in the country were there for his games. Like, if I had just judging off like who made him a priority, that isn't really on his list or hasn't really been considered a major factor yet, Michigan's going to be involved in this thing. Juwan Howard was there for every minute of every game, and usually with 1, 2, or 3 assistants by his side. Like, it is very clear Michigan is going all in on Isaiah Collier. Right. Saw Bruce Pearl there. You saw staff from Alabama there. I didn't see Nate Oates. That doesn't mean he wasn't there, but I didn't see him personally. And then I was standing with Mick and Mike Roberts and Mike Lewis, who played for Indiana, was on Mick's staff at UCLA, is now the head coach at Ball State. And we're all just standing there watching the game and joking around. And Leonard Hamilton walked up and was like, uh-oh. Things got serious. Leonard Hamilton's here. Like, if Leonard Hamilton's hanging around, you get nervous because he's got a track record of getting stuff done to Florida State. So that was one that was like, oh boy, uh-oh.
So you mentioned the passing ability, but he did have some good shooting percentages on his threes in the games that you posted as well. So, I mean, he obviously is as good as he's tabbed. You don't get that high of a rating if you aren't. And I believe the sentiment around everyone in the mix seems as if will probably get a bump in the rankings or ratings if it were to come to that, or I don't know exactly how that.
Yeah, I mean
but
he's right in that 15 to 18 range. Mm-hmm. He's going to end up in the top 10.
Yeah,
like almost for certain he's going to end up in the top 10 and potentially top 5. He's that good. So you want to talk about momentum in the Wes Miller era? Go get you a top 5 point guard.
And another thing we've mentioned,
I think that would have people feeling pretty good about things, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. And I hate to mention it because I don't think there's too much of a tie or this was really a goal or even a factor in it all. But you've got Rob Phinisee coming in, and Collier does see that. Okay, well, Rob's here for 1 year. The door's wide open, So, and I think it would have been wide open anyway, but just another added factor to it, throwing in the mix as well. So, it also, we've mentioned it a couple times, him and Rayvon, it seemed that they become best friends. Rayvon's got his big decision on Sunday. So if that shakes down in the right way for Cincinnati, it could be massive news Sunday. And then
what do you think, Aaron? Maybe go live Sunday night around 8:00?
I feel like I can make that work.
Wow.
Maybe a live nightcap, something along those lines.
I like that. Well, I believe on his Instagram, he was inviting all media members and photographers to his commitment. I don't know where it's at, but that's a big one. That's a big one on Sunday. Where did he play this weekend, Chad?
He was in Spartanburg, South Carolina. From what I heard, he had a good week, but it wasn't wasn't quite the level that he had in Indy 2 weeks ago. But when you're on a team that's got the type of talent his team has, you'll see spikes where it's this week is, this guy kind of dominates. And the next week, from what I heard, 2 weeks ago, Reed Shepard, who's committed to Kentucky, I was kind of like,
Right. And then
I like him. I like him a lot, but he's not really getting shit done this week. Apparently he got shit done in Spartanburg this weekend, and he was kind of the star for that team. And then Rayvon and Gabe Cupps, who's going to Indiana, kind of took a backseat to Reed being the guy this week. So that's kind of how that happens a lot, man. These guys you look at these teams that are just crazy loaded.
Yeah.
Oh. Hold on.
Uh-oh.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
Okay, never mind.
Oh, okay.
It's going to be a good week. That's what I can tell you. That's what I can tell you. Right now, that's what I can tell you. It's going to be a good week.
Well, that man. I wish you could have seen your face, but we didn't get to.
Well, I didn't get the full text. I just saw something come across the top of your screen. You know how that happens?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But then when I got the full thing, you guys here are the first to hear. It's gonna be a good week. I think we're gonna have a good week. I think we're gonna have fun this week.
There we go. Hey, you know what? That's why I called this the show before the show, because this is this is the build-up show, because there's a lot happening at the tail end of the week, and if it goes well, we could just, and I don't know, we'll have an Aaron After Dark episode of the BBP in celebration. I'm in for it. Chad, speaking of momentum and riding the hot hand, if you will, one of the other names you mentioned, he kind of really putting the nation on lock this weekend, and you were there in attendance for that. Tell us what you saw out of Tyler McKinley And he's a guy, obviously, a Cincinnati native, one that has mentioned in some interviews that, the going to Cincinnati would be awesome, getting to wear the city across his chest and different things of that sort. So, and Wes and staff have been all over him for as long as I can remember, since they've been on campus. So kind of tell me what you saw out of his game this past weekend.
The big fella's nimble. Like, he handles the ball. Like, usually somebody that size is the guy setting the ball screen, like in the pick and roll.
Right.
McKinley was coming off of ball screens, playing downhill with the ball in his hands at times.
Okay.
The one thing I really loved, getting the ball off the rim and being able to go. Like, just bang, bang, get the rebound, instant pressure on the defense. And if you watch some of the highlights from this weekend, it's what I fell in love with on Gary Clark the first time I saw him that made me recommend him to the UC staff. Getting that ball, taking 2 power dribbles, and then via the pass, pushing it up the floor and making plays in that capacity where, again, you just put so much pressure on the defense when you do that, because they're scrambling to get back, because you've now got a big man with ball skills and passing skills that can beat you over the top, or can take it himself and just put that straight line pressure on you, get to the free throw line and make a pass as the defense attracts to him. Or, he had a hesitation, an up and under, and went back the other way for a finish, like a pivot, went back opposite, and a scoop off the backboard. Like, there's just so many things that he can do that make him really intriguing. There are some small concerns. I think there's a little bit of worry about his length.
You're talking
He's got
McKinley?
the height. Yeah, McKinley. That's who we've been talking about for 5 minutes.
Well, I was waiting to hear. I missed the name
Oh,
at the beginning, and then you just kept saying he. I had both Paige and McKinley ready.
Well, no, Brent asked me about McKinley, so I was referencing he because that's who he asked me about.
That's the part I missed.
Okay. There's a little bit of concern about his length. Like, he's not an overly, wingspan is not going to be a strength for him. I don't think it's like he's not a T-Rex by any stretch of the imagination, but he doesn't have those that 7-foot wingspan that you're looking for in guys necessarily. So opponents with length potentially will be able to give him a little bit of trouble going forward as he progresses up levels. But for right now, man, he handles the ball better than I imagined. He sees the floor well. He really works well out of like the mid post. So if he would be a real weapon, like when teams try to zone you, because he can get the ball at the free throw line and shoot it from there and score it, or find the short corner or kick it opposite, as the defense adjusts and moves. He's just a guy offensively that can really help you in a lot of ways. He rebounds it really well. He's right around double-digit rebounds or over double-digit rebounds in both of the games I saw. I think one game he had 12, one game he had 9. And he was the leading 16 and under scorer at the EYBL this weekend at 20, 24, 25 points a game. So every box, he checks it. And he's number 60 in the composite right now for 2024, number 79 on 24/7. That's going to rise. This is a top 50 kid. This is potentially more than a top 50 kid. And you talk about things lining up exactly right for Wes. If they close on Rayvon, and then you go back to that well again locally with another top 50 kid and Tyler McKinley in the 2024 class, when's the last time the 513 had 2 top 50 kids in back-to-back classes? I can't remember when that happened.
And ones that not only carried that ranking early, but continued to carry it, and just continued going up. Yeah, exactly. So,
yeah.
it's brewing, and I want to go back to Brian Johnson because I think he's talking about me, or maybe it was your comment, but about you make that sound like last week wasn't fun. It was. It was a blast. I mean, the addition of Corey Kiner and Rob Phinisee, and of course Braden Moore. I mean, those are three. It's just whatever that was.
Posted that after Chad said it was going to be a fun week this week. That was what he was referencing.
Okay, but this week you add in the NFL draft on top of things, the potential of big names dropping here and there. So, man, it's crazy. Back-to-back fun weeks. Why not? Let's have a week, Brian. Let's have back-to-back weeks. But Chad, do you see? I want to wrap up McKinley first, but do you see McKinley as a player that fits that kind of positionless basketball mold of maybe he's not going to play the wing, but he has that ability to kind of frustrate you with his, he might be able to take you off the dribble if you bring a bigger plotting defender out on him, or he can pop one over a shorter defender if they decide to go that way against him, kind of that role in the way that the game is moving. Because I mean, 6'8", sure, even if the length isn't absolutely there, I mean that's some great height, and just height alone would give him the ability to pop some shots over a shorter defender, and then of course you tie that in with his ability to also probably take some players off the bounce, like you mentioned. Oh,
or did we lose Chad?
I think that sound was a phone call, probably.
Thanks.
Is that what it was?
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
he didn't even say it was going
anymore. Here we are. So, Aaron, I know you don't love to do too much research until we get to player, until someone is committed. Yeah. So can't really ask you any more questions as far as it goes with Steve and I agree. Probably good news. Hopefully. Hopefully. But yeah, I mean I think it's good news because I'm not answering a phone, but I think it's good news.
I mean, if it's big enough to just hop out of the podcast.
Yeah. So
you would think it would probably be a big deal call.
Let it be known. Let it be known. Okay. So all right. Do we move on to the mailbag or what's
Can't even do the timestamp yet though, because he has the reads for the timestamps.
Okay, well let's fill it in. What's
let's
Brian Johnson with the hopeful thoughts again. Brian, you're bringing the heat. I like it.
It did happen last night in the nightcap too, where Chad had a phone call and he had to go, and he's just like, "All right, that's all we got for tonight. See ya."
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And you're like, "Oh, all right. I'll see you later."
I think he had. It's like when you go on that date, right? And you got somebody that you don't want to be on the date anymore, but you have like the emergency call lined up. I think that's what's been happening lately, where he's like, I don't think I want to do the podcast. I don't want to do the nightcap. So I'm getting out early.
Right, exactly. Let me leave him hanging. Let me leave Brett mid long-winded question and just leave him hanging after he's coming off a bachelor party in Scottsdale, making me like sweat even more than I've already been sweating. Come on.
Maybe that's how you learn to, just make the questions more succinct.
I could have asked that
when he's got
seconds. He still wouldn't have answered.
When he's got the black screen.
He always does the black screen. I don't know if he's away or not.
I know. I don't either. But, I don't even know what's happening anymore.
No, not at all. But yeah, so, and I don't even know if we'll get an answer on what happened on the phone call over the pod, but either way, we'll see. Aaron, were you able to get any more intel as far as, on the nightcaps kind of the other names? Obviously you mentioned on the board as well in his notebook, but kind of were you
I'm back.
Dive in?
Yeah. I'm back. Yeah. I had to take that one. Can't tell you why, but I had to take that one.
Sounds good.
There's a lot of phone calls that happen this time of year. Like there's a lot of calls I have to answer. That we either have to end the nightcap, a few minutes early, or I have to let Aaron and Brent kind of run the show for a few minutes. Like things are happening. It's happening. It's happening. Everybody stay calm. I said everybody stay fucking calm.
Well, hopefully
the office gift.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Hopefully, good news lands here and we're able to continue to talk about that. How about that?
Yeah. Yep.
There we go.
They did great.
Thanks, Steven. Jeffrey, thanks for that. Cyclones tied 3-3.
Were you guys trying to talk to me?
Well, no, I gave you a nice thought out question, and
it was one of his Brent 90-second questions, and we just
question.
waited. We waited for your response,
like a nice person would.
I was muted. My phone rang. You heard my phone ring.
Aaron doesn't watch commits until they commit. So it's like, all right. Well, Aaron.
I thought you'd say, "Hey guys, I'll be right back." When it went,
I thought he was playing like a song.
It's
like
Outcast,
like the
Fodioti
Pump It Up song.
Topalicious.
I know, but I thought you were tying it into the BBP that we're on live right now on. But
no, that's my ringtone.
Well, hopefully, everything just
Kathy, why do you hate me? What's your problem with me, Kathy?
She's been coming to chat on PTP. She's been coming to chat.
Let's timestamp in Mailbag. I got stuff to do.
Yeah. Well, that was the thing too. We couldn't move on to the Mailbag because we don't have the timestamp reads. So.
Oh yeah. Urban Artifact celebrates their 7th anniversary this month. Well, crap. I need new reads because this one ended yesterday. Urban Artifact is the largest sour-only brewery in the U.S. They pack over 700,000 pounds of real fruit into their lineup of fruit tarts every year. Swing by Urban Artifact's Northside Tap Room, mention Bearcat Journal to get $2 off a flight of 4 tasters. Or this one could be appropriate too. Here's an alley-oop. Urban Artifact's fruit tarts score more than the rest. Swing by their Northside Tap Room and mention Bearcat Journal. Get $2 off a flight of 4 tasters. It's a basketball hint. Alley-oop.
alley-oop.
Hoops goes out of bounds. Oh, that's funny. Sorry, I can't control the calls. The calls control me. That's just how this works.
Right. I agree. So are we rolling into the mailbag? Is that what's happening?
Yep. Mailbag.
Chad, I wanted to ask you how the last name was, but maybe we'll touch on that later. Did the phone ring again?
I don't know. All right. So, not sure if this has been this is the football portion as we always start. Not sure if this has been asked, but which player or players helped themselves the most in the spring? Who would
That's a
you
tough
say,
one,
Brent?
That's a tough one. Go ahead, Brent. I'll let you do this one first.
Which player or players helped themselves the most in the spring? I think the obvious answer is Evan Prater. I think he kind of showed his ability to take his game to the next level.
I don't think that's even the most obvious answer on offense.
Okay. I know. Yours is Blue Smith. I know.
No.
I was a joke, but yeah.
That was a good joke.
Shimon Mateers.
Yes.
Yep. Mine is just Evan because it kind of was like, oh wow, Ben Bryant's coming back for his final season. For another season after transferring to Eastern. So, kind of is this like something that's been in the mix or something along those lines? And Oh wow, what's that one? Pink.
Oh, it's just the strawberry lemon seltzer.
Okay.
But go on.
But yeah, I mean, Evan, I think has just amped up the competition, which is the main thing we hear Brady mention all the time. The main thing you hear Luke mention all the time is just this competition. And quarterback, Luke's mentioned this as well, is the most important position on the team. And Evan's showing that he's ready to compete and be right there with Ben and go mano a mano and duke it out for the best. And Aaron, take it away with Shimon.
I mean, the kid has done nothing from the very first time we mentioned him this spring was the fact that, oh, we have a tight end running over 20 miles an hour. And I believe he was, over 22 at that point.
Mm-hmm. No, 20. He got over 21.
Was it? Okay, it's still absurd. But we thought maybe it was a fluke, and then he kept showing up on that same report as the reports would come out as far as top speeds would go. Then he just started catching everything and continuing to translate those speeds that they were running onto the field.
Mm-hmm.
And he took advantage of the fact that Wiley's out, so it slots everybody up one, and he has, made quite a name for himself where he didn't really have a name for himself prior to this spring. So I think that he far and away has had the most the biggest leap, I guess, of anybody on at least on the offensive side of the ball.
Chad, just do offense, and then we'll loop back around defense. I like this.
I think I'd agree with Evan Prater. I think you nailed it, Brent. Like, we talked about it, man. This was a situation that could have got away from him quick this spring if Ben Bryant comes in and is clearly the better player. And in that first week, that's kind of what it looked like was going to happen.
Right.
And Evan said, "Nah, I'm in this thing. Like I'm here to battle and make this tooth and nail. I'm here to make this a straight up big time competition to see who's going to be the quarterback for this program of the future." And there were a lot of other guys that did well, but I think I just have to look at Evan and say, in terms of the guys that it could have gone help yourself or hurt yourself, right? Like Shimon, I agree. Like I wrote about him I said that like at practice 9. I was like, I think I'm going to write about this guy every practice the entire spring. But Shimon was always going to be the tight end of the future, right? He was always going to be number 3 this year.
Mm-hmm.
And then probably number 1 with a bullet next year. Evan could have lost this thing, and it could have got shuffled back early, and things would have been a problem in terms of like what exactly is the future of Evan Prater. And now the future of Evan Prater is we know he's going to fight.
Right.
We know he's going to put up a hell of a fight, and he's not going to back down, and he's going to be ready. And I think that was critical. You want me to start defense? We'll snake draft it.
Sure.
Jaheim Thomas.
You're gonna take mine, man.
Okay, I won't take yours.
No, do it.
I'll let you have Jaheim. I'll go with one I think that's a little off the radar. I think Eric Phillips quietly had a career altering spring because Malik Vann was out for most of that spring, most of the spring at that starting defensive end spot. It opened the door for Eric Phillips to get reps with the ones pretty consistently almost throughout the entire spring. And you know what? Eric Phillips looked like he belonged. He looked like he was a guy that's gonna be a major factor in this defense over the next 2 or 3 years. So I think it was a huge opportunity for him because he was presented with the chance to show, can you run with the ones? Right. And some guys can't do that. Some guys, they get presented that opportunity and they're not ready to step up to the challenge. I thought Eric was. It's so crazy that there's been talk about we just got to get some more weight on him. The kid was 315 pounds a year ago at this point in time. He was 310. And now he's like 255, 260, and they're talking about, having to bulk him up a little bit. He's skinny. Like, you guys can attest to that. When you see Eric Phillips in comparison to what he looked like, you're like, that human is skinny. There is a flat belly. I don't know if there's a six-pack under there, but he's not hanging off the sides.
Right.
And I know what that looks like. He's not hanging off the sides. Straight down. So I'll go Eric Phillips. I'll let you have Jaheim.
For me, it was between Arquan and JQ.
Very good.
For very similar reasons. So just kind of covering both. I mean, Arquan has JQ coming up right behind him, and JQ has Arquan and obviously a room of other cornerbacks ahead of him. But both of those guys have battled to be in the place that they're in right now. And JQ is quietly, or maybe not so quietly at this point, nipping at the heels of cracking the ones. So I don't know, for Arquan to step up into the shadow left by the previous cornerback group that was here.
Right.
That's not an easy place to jump in. And he has done so very, very well at this point and continued to keep that room strong. Obviously, losing a Kobe, losing a Sauce, it's not going to be the same.
Right.
But it's at least strong. There wasn't a gigantic drop-off from what we've seen so far. And JQ,
there's a lot of good wide receivers.
Yeah, absolutely.
That they're covering.
But with JQ nipping at his heels and also making a name for himself just in the kids, he would be going to prom right now. Like, he's not supposed to be here right now flirting with the twos and the ones.
Right.
So that's kind of where we are. And kudos to him. And selfishly, I just have my connection with JQ from covering him as he was coming up anyway. So,
yeah. I think JQ is my number 2, so
okay,
it would have been funny. But yeah, I mean, I'll keep mine short. Jaheim Thomas is an NFL player. He will get drafted when his time comes. And this spring saw an evolution in him where the staff is now not putting pressure on him. I guess you could say putting pressure on him, but kind of just boosting him to tell him how important he really is to the next step of this defense, and using him as an edge rusher. Obviously, losing Maje is a monster thing that's hard to replicate, to duplicate. But now you bring in Jaheim, you tell him we need you for this as well. But Jaheim Thomas, NFL draft coming up this weekend. Give it a couple years. Jaheim will hear his name called, and the spring was just the start of that. And he's going to have a massive role on the defense next year and really burst out on the scene. I'm very confident about that.
All right. Since spring ball has concluded, do you think the Black Cats Bearcats defense will give up more or less than 17 points per game? Last year it was 16.86. In 2020 it was 16.8. In 2019 it was 20.57. I say no.
Go ahead. I'll be back in a sec.
I don't think they're gonna. I don't think they're gonna give up less than 17. I think you'll probably see it closer to that 20-21 mark. And that's not to say that even in 2019 that it was a bad defense. It's just you lost a lot of major pieces, and there's going to be some growing pains.
So let's look at it. At Arkansas, Miami of Ohio, and Indiana. Those are the 2 out-of-conference, 3 out-of-conference games that aren't against.
You could say 2. I mean, they're not bringing out their ones, right?
Yeah, good point. You travel to Tulsa. They aren't going to be firing up any giant point totals. At SMU, might have some higher scoring to it. UCF, are they going to put up some points? I think they're getting a lot of love. And then obviously you don't play against Houston until unless it would be in the AAC championship game. I don't see a ton of scoring. ECU comes to Cincinnati, which has just been when ECU plays here, it's been Cincinnati.
Is Holton Ahlers gone? Is he back? We know.
I'm pretty sure he's back.
Okay.
But I mean, you look at last year. What were the high scoring games that they allowed? Indiana scored 24. UCF scored 21, but pretty much all like some garbage points. Navy scored 20. You got 20 versus Tulsa. 28 at USF was the biggest one. I don't know. Will they be under 17? That's asking a lot, but I think they'll be right there. I think it's a talented defense, and you kind of just reload. It's not that far fetched to say.
You're just very optimistic. I appreciate it.
I just pointed out, name the offensive juggernauts on the schedule this year. It's not like teams are going to be putting up 28 points consistently against this defense, even with all the players that lost.
I don't know. I don't know that even scoring 20 means an offensive juggernaut. I just think
that
you have a different defense.
It'll be over 20.
Over 20?
I think right around 20.
I mean,
around 3 touchdowns a game is what. I mean, you're still. Look, man, I don't think people understand
the cornerbacks.
Still, how dominant just sauce.
Right. I know.
Just the fact that the boundary side of the field was not an option.
Right.
Teams were scheming, putting their worst receiving option over there just so that, because they knew that didn't exist. So what happens when the boundary's open? Now you got a safety that has to shade over there a little bit. Right. Now the rest of the field is a little bit more available.
Us being so dominant. Sus being so dominant won Kobe the Thorpe Award.
Right. Because teams had to throw at Kobe.
That's crazy, right?
Right. So it's the way college football works anymore, man. Holding teams to 20 points a game is being very, very good on defense. Very good on defense.
Okay, well, 2019, 20.57. That's,
that's where I said it would be in line with.
So right around 20.
That's exactly what I said too, right around 20, 21.
I said it would be over 17. I said it's not going to be 17, but I don't think it's going to be that far off. I guess we're all kind of just saying the same thing.
Yeah. Moving on.
It'll be higher, but not crazy 28 or something like that.
From a practice and conditioning standpoint, what have been the most noticeable changes in the offensive line under Coach Cummings?
I mean, I don't know how would I judge the conditioning standpoint, standing 60 feet away on the sideline. I don't know how I would judge that part. Practice, I think it's interesting because there was a lot of juggling. There was a lot of, let's see what this guy can do here. Let's see what that guy can do here. We'll get this guy some reps with, at this spot, and that guy some reps at that spot. I think Cummings really wants to give Metz another look at tackle because he looks like a tackle that Cummings likes to coach. We'll see if we get to higher ground and you see maybe Metz at right tackle and O'Quinn back inside, something along those lines. I think the Gavin Gerhardt question came up last week about what's the future of Renfro with the hip issue. And from what everybody told me Gavin Gerhardt really impressed the staff this spring with how much he improved at center. Because last year it was a problem. If he would have had to play significant snaps at center in place of Renfro, the snaps were not where they need to be, right? It just wasn't there yet. It was a position he had never played. Think about doing something you've never done before and then having to do it at the highest level of college football. And then having that thing be center, which is maybe the second most demanding position on offense, right? You got to get the calls right. You got to get the line checks right. And all the while you're worried about snapping a ball between your legs, accurately 7-8 yards every time. Not easy. But the good news is now Gavin's kind of found himself a rhythm so that being the backup center is something that's kind of natural to him. So he's a guard. Remember, he came in as a guard. Now maybe you can move Gavin back to guard and say, if we need you at center, you're our backup center. but we don't necessarily have to like use you constantly only as the second team center. You know, that's the kind of line versatility that happens all over the place where, you know, now he's got that in his back pocket. So I think they were really happy with Gerhardt. I thought James Tunstall had a really, really good spring at left tackle. So I think you're confident there. You know, you get Renfro back at center. You're very confident there. And then you've got a lot of options between right tackle and the other two guard spots if you want to mix things up, or you can just run it back. Dylan O'Quinn at right guard and Dylan O'Quinn at right tackle, Metz at right guard, Renfro, Coop at left guard, and then Tunstall at left tackle. So for the first time since Fickle got here, it feels like there's some depth being, you know, legitimately built on the offensive line where there's some versatility and some ability to move things around.
All right. I don't know if you had any more to add to anything with the offensive line.
I only went to the spring game,
right?
So I didn't really get to see too much.
All right. Now that Kiner's here and the roster is looking closer to final, what is your outlook on the season? Are we in the driver's seat for the G5 berth?
Do you think I'm like fully aware of like what the Sun Belt has to offer right now? Well, with the type of off season that we've had, Brian, like I got, you know,
I'll dial it back a notch. I mean, I don't even know that we're in the driver's seat right now for the conference.
I would have Houston ahead of Cincinnati right now. Right now.
I think that there's too many unknowns right now. Like we don't know which quarterback is going to be game one starter.
Right. So the team that has the returning quarterback, right? Like
right.
Clayton Tune is the returning quarterback at Houston. We know
and Clayton Tune's been a dude. Like
right. So I'm going to lean towards the team that has a sound defense. We know Houston has a good defense, right? We know they've got a quarterback. We know they've got, you know, their running back and wide receiver situations are a little less imposing than they were last year, but they're still going to have a solid offense. They're still going to have a solid defense. Like, I think right now, you know, you'd have to, on paper, give at least a slight edge to Houston. And then Cincinnati's got to go to the bounce house and beat UCF.
Now, no one's getting fooled. No one's getting fooled by Tulane this year, trying to say like Tulane's going to be third or fourth best.
Oh, yes, they
team
are.
In the conference,
people
right?
will say it. Watch.
Are they? Well, my fear is no one's saying that yet about Tulane. So my fear is that no one says it at all about Tulane, and this is going to be the year where they just leap.
Well, they still have the quarterback, right? Like this will be year 3 of their quarterback.
Yeah, it is going to be
very promising. So, I mean, no, I think people will still say it. Hold on, I got to shut these dogs up. You guys go ahead for a second.
Brent, what are your thoughts, though, as far as the way too early outlook on the season?
Kings are the kings until they get dethroned. So, I mean, we've said it a lot. Yeah, I know it's the optimist in me, but we've said it a lot. They're losing 9 players to the NFL, and then a couple other really good seniors that had a lasting effect on the program. But I mean, you're replenishing that with some of the highest ranked recruits in program history. Yeah, sure. There's a lot that needs to be figured out. I mean, the loss of Sauce is monstrous. The loss of Desmond Ridder is monstrous. And in order to get the G5 berth or in order to win the AAC, you got to be able to pull out those tough games. You know, pull out the game at USF in 2020 where, you know, surprisingly they're giving you a game until the very end, and Desmond Ridder, hobbled with one arm, is able to drive you down the field and set up a last second field goal for the win. You need that type of play, but you know, you're replenishing the team with some of the best recruits in program history. Go out, and you know, the addition of Kiner is big as well, adds a huge piece to the offense. So King's king until they're dethroned. So we'll see.
The thing, like, look though, you can't champion how incredible it is for the program to have 9 guys drafted and also have the stance that that's not a big deal.
Oh no, I don't.
No,
have
I'm not saying you particularly. I'm just saying in general, like,
right.
They're going to come back to the pack some.
They're
That's
not in any preseason top 25. They're not. And you know what that does for me as well, though?
Gel,
right.
And have a chip on their shoulder.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah,
that's kind of the thing. You get 4 stars, talent, chips on their shoulder. Man, it's the same as it was a few years ago when they were all trying to prove themselves. So we'll see.
All right. Is there any interest you see interest in Noah Potter? I believe we recruited him in high school.
I don't think it is at a serious level yet. I certainly think Cincinnati would, just because of, his size and ability. I think it's something they'd kick the tires on. But I don't know that it's something that immediately it's like, keep your eye on Noah Potter. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Tracking.
Similar. Any UC interest with Andre Turrentine? Not sure if we recruited him in high school, but Combs has to have a good relationship with him, right?
Safety, not a corner. I don't think safety is a position that they're really like feverishly looking for answers. I think they're pretty happy with what they've got between Hicks and the group of young guys, Dingle and Threats and Isaiah Cox and Armorion Smith. And then you got a couple guys coming in as well. I think they're okay at safety, so I don't think it is something with the 85 number being tight, because here's what's happening. Let's have a talk about culture and what's happening at UC. Guys don't want to leave.
I'm not leaving.
Right. So the conversation happens of like, it's year 3, you haven't cracked the 2 deep yet. Like, if you're looking for a significant role, maybe it might be time to see if somewhere else would be a better fit. And the answer is, I'm good. I like it here. I'm having a good time. Like, I've got my brothers. I've created my family of brothers going forward. And this is a situation. I'm doing good in school. I like my life. Like, yeah, I'd probably like a little bit more playing time, but maybe I'm not in a hurry to jump in the transfer portal, because we're finding out that the NCAA released some numbers today. We're starting to find out is exactly what we thought.
40%.
40% aren't finding a scholarship. 40% of the kids in the transfer portal don't find a new home.
I was going to give that to you as what I wanted to talk about on the nightcap tonight.
We can talk about it on the nightcap for sure.
So what do 40% of people do?
You walk on somewhere, or your football career is over.
Sheesh.
That's terrible. 40% of the people entering the portal are not finding a home.
Right.
So, and I think kids are getting hip to that. Like, nah, I'm good. I'm gonna stay here. I'm gonna get my degree.
Some of those numbers will adjust as COVID years become less prominent.
Sure, but still, it's going to be a large number.
Yeah.
And another thing along with your culture statement, Chad, is all these players they buy into what Luke Fickell and the staff says to them. And one of those things is you can do everything that you can do at all the big name schools around the country. You can do it at Cincinnati. So, I mean, that's just why, like, do you think the grass will be greener on the other side? We mentioned that with numerous other guys. And trust in yourself, trust in your development. Look at these players that developed into this. So, yeah, I'm right there with you. I'm right there with you.
Why would I want to leave, Coach? I'm happy. I've got my brothers. I've had a great time here at Cincinnati. I'm doing good in school. I'm going to get my degree. Everything's working out just great. And I don't want to roll the dice that I'm going to be one of those 40% that doesn't find another home.
Wolf of Wall Street. I'm not leaving.
I'm not leaving. You sure? I'm not leaving. I said I'm not leaving. Right?
Will Corey Kiner make the team? And if he does, how will his switch to defensive tackle affect the 2 deep? I'll hang up and listen. These are your readers. Will Ethan Wright switch to safety?
Maybe. I don't know. Luke's joked about it for 3 years now. Like, there will never be a surprise if we show up one day and Ethan Wright's at safety. But he wants to play running back. He's been steadfast in that desire. Part of making the switch is player buy-in. Like, if the player doesn't buy in, it's very hard to make that switch, right? Like, you need to have them on the same page if it's going to happen. Connor Barwin doesn't go from tight end to defensive end unless he wasn't, all in on the why. Alec Pierce, perfect example. Alec, we want you to play linebacker. Okay, but I don't want to play linebacker. And they had him at linebacker for like 3 or 4 days and realized his heart wasn't in it. I think it was a pretty good decision for him to stick at wide receiver. Right?
So
seemed like it worked out pretty well for Alec there. You got
it for all parties.
Yeah, Huber. Now he's the starting middle linebacker.
Potential NFL.
Yeah.
All right. If the quarterback competition is close, why not go with the guy with the most upside and highest ceiling in Prater? Ritter grew every year and still won a ton of games as he was developing.
Look, that's not how college coaches think. That's not how coaches think. The way coaches think is who's going to give me the best chance to win at Arkansas? And who's going to give me the best chance to beat Indiana at Nippert Stadium? Like, that's how college coaches think. It's not a zero sum, like we're going to be better 2 years from now if I start Evan Prater now. They started Dez 4 years ago because they felt he was the better option than Hayden Moore. It wasn't we're gonna play Alabama in the college football playoff in 2021 if we get Dez in there now. It was Dez gives us a better chance to win now.
He also didn't start that first game, correct?
Right. Yes. There was an eye on.
Obviously there was a short leash, but
right. And he took it and ran with it. So, you start the guy you think gives you the best chance to win the game in front of you. So, Ritter grew every year, but this program's at a different spot now, right? Like, you're not at a point where if that 2018 team went 9-4 after the bowl game, like that would have been still considered a successful year. Just so happened that they won a lot of those close games and Mike Warren carried the load and Dez was able to manage the game. That's not how the thinking goes. The thinking goes, we have Arkansas and we got to beat Arkansas, and who gives us the best chance to do it?
All right. If Vrabel doesn't draft a Bearcat, how long does it take before Luke speaks to him again?
I don't think that'll be a problem.
I think this was one of my favorite questions, actually.
I mean, those two have been best friends for a long time. But I think there is like better take one of my guys. I would not be shocked in terms of knowing a little bit about Vrabel. That's a Brian Cook guy, right? Like I could see Vrabel falling in love with Brian Cook or Curtis Brooks. More so,
good pointer.
Cook. More so, Cook.
Right, but like if it's like later in the draft, and
sure.
Luke's like, "Are you kidding me? You haven't taken Brooks yet."
All right.
The bigger question is, will they be texting back and forth like during the draft?
Maybe. Like
in that first round where Luke's sitting in Vegas, like chiding him, like Dez is there. What are you doing? Come get your quarterback.
I don't know how much. I mean, he's getting me in the war room. I don't know how much he's texting Luke Fickle at that point. I don't know.
He had a guy pretending like he was taking a dump in the back of the screen.
You win.
COVID year.
I mean, COVID was crazy. All right, you win.
Is there a guy taking a dump at Vrabel's draft room?
That was a wild draft.
That was a wild draft.
Between that and the whole Gruden thing, like I was just like, what?
Belichick with the dog at the desk.
Yeah.
You had
exactly.
Zach Taylor in
like just in an empty room in a like some office building on Reading Road. They just rented out like one room in an office building on Reading Road and put Zach a desk in there. Like here's the war room.
Cliff Kingsbury and like
his
bachelor pad of all bachelor
pad. On his couch, kicked back like I got this. Unreal. All right, moving on to the basketball portion of the mailbag. Would landing Nolley possibly result in less of players alternating between the 3 and 4? I think only Hensley and Reed have been discussed in that light.
Who's alternated a lot between the 3 and 4? Davenport didn't do it much. Like he played almost exclusively at the 4. Hensley played down the stretch a little bit more at the 4,
right?
But was almost exclusively at the 3 for most of the season.
Right.
Odie certainly didn't play the 3. Vic certainly didn't play the 3. Those are the other guys that played the 4.
Newman played the 3 pretty much
exclusively.
Yeah.
He didn't. I don't remember him playing a second at the 4.
Right. I guess Reed would be the only one that you said was like a combo forward type thing.
Yeah, but I think like you want to start and Reed could be different because of how highly like intelligent he is and how high his basketball IQ is. You could probably teach him 2 spots.
Right.
But generally with freshmen, you just want to teach them this is what you're going to do. Right? Like this is your spot. So I don't know that we saw much of it last year. I don't know that we'll see much of it next year. This year, however you want to phrase it.
With an upgraded roster, including freshmen in the mix, do you expect Miller to stick to his rotation and scripted subs throughout the season or mix and match more? Thank you.
I think he's a guy that likes the scripted stuff. I think we saw that last year. That's an NBA thing. You're either a guy that like that's your thing or you're a feel guy and you sub with feel. Wes seems very much more comfortable with guys knowing for the most part, there's going to be some deviation in it, but for the most part, this is where you're coming in. This is where you're coming out. Roughly, these are our rotations. Now, with so many new guys, you would think that, and with a better understanding of the guys that are returning and with the learning curve of the new guys coming in, there maybe will be a little bit more flexibility to that, especially early in the season. But I think once you get into conference play and you get moving, I think he's a guy that likes to do more of the NBA stuff where it's, this is our script and we're sticking to it. I think here's the more fair question that nobody really gets. Like if you're going to make an argument about this and compare, like the NBA, you get 8 more minutes a game. So there's more space to do this type of thing and still have everybody get, in basketball, you're trying to work it around TV timeouts, right? Like you're coming in at the 16 and you're going to play until just after the under 12, or, you're coming in with about 10 minutes left and you're going to get this guy a breather until 5 along those lines. We're in the NBA. A lot of it, if you look at it, it's like, okay, you're going to play the first 9 minutes of the first quarter, and then we're going to sit you out the last 3 minutes of the second quarter, the last 3 minutes of the first quarter, and the first 3 minutes of the second quarter. And it's like it's a little more structured because you have a bigger window to perform that action. Where in basketball, it's very tight with 40 minutes. Like trying to shuffle a guy in for a scripted 4 minutes here and a guy for, overlapping that with a scripted 4 minutes there. Also, in the NBA, your second team is generally better. That's where this will be interesting for next year, right? Because Cincinnati should have, if they can get Landers Nolley done, should have a much more stable second unit where it can be, okay, our second unit between the 16-minute and the 10-minute, we want to get our second unit mixed in all throughout there. And then we get our starters back at the under 8 and run our starters till the end of the half. Like, there's a lot of variables to it, but I think he's a script guy. That's what we learned this year. Maybe that changes, but people usually tell us who they are by their actions, right? And my belief is his actions showed us the way that it goes. Kathy, if you don't like me, stop listening to the fucking podcast. Jesus.
Will Vic have access to an extra COVID year if he wants to stay when the time comes? Do not know of him redshirting.
I believe so.
Yeah,
I'll get to that one in a little bit. I believe so. I think it's two separate. It's the same, but it's two separate. If that makes sense. They both happened at the same time, but I think they're counted as two separate things. He redshirted during his COVID year. But I believe you have the ability to use the redshirt and the COVID as two separate entities. They're not one thing. Does that make sense?
Well, he can also say that it was because of injury, and then that would, in essence, then be like free injury year as well. Which I mean, if Mamadou Diarra and some of these other guys are playing year 6 and getting to walk in two separate.
Yeah, but those things didn't happen for Mamadou. He didn't have a redshirt year and his COVID year happen at the same time. That's what the question is.
Yeah. Huh. I would say yes.
I don't think they're two things that cancel each other out. I think they are independent of one another.
All right. Since the 90s, which Bearcats have...
Who's had a successful career in the NBA?
Thank you. I was trying to figure out how that was worded.
Kenyon.
Nick Van Exel.
Van Exel.
Corey Blunt.
Danny Fortson.
Corey played 12, 13 years in the NBA. I guess.
Lance.
Lance. Max had a successful NBA career. What, 8 seasons, 9 seasons? Gary is in the middle of it. Gary is in the middle of carving out a successful NBA career.
SK got a nice contract from the Bulls.
Yeah, but it didn't the Bulls, you know what that was, right? There's a salary floor.
That was the floor.
They had to spend that money, and SK just happened to be the guy that they were like, here's the money we have to spend, sir. Thank you.
Ruben.
Yeah.
But who had the best? Kenyon.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
He played on some really good Nets teams and then some really good Denver teams. And he was a major part of that.
Did Corey get a ring with LA? Did Nick get a ring with LA?
I don't think Nick did.
Did Tony Bobbitt get a ring with LA?
James White got a ring.
Yeah.
With the San Antonio Spurs.
San Antonio.
Spurs, correct.
I was just curious if anybody actually got the chip.
I don't know.
I'll let you look that up. I'm going to move on to the next question. What former Bearcat from an 05-06, or I'm sorry, from an 05-06 to 13-14 would you select to add to the team today?
I think you always take SK, right? second leading scorer in school history. He was a guy that just impacted so many different avenues with his ability to play offense. Corey got a ring. Nick didn't. Nick was the one I was like. I didn't. I don't think Nick got one. I would just. But right behind SK would probably be Jaron, because Jaron just had such a great feel for the game and ability to score and pass and do so many different things that, you know. And then Gary would be third for me.
I'd even throw in Jake in there too.
I'd take SK over Jake.
Yeah, I mean, I was just throwing in a name.
Yeah.
Jaron would be my first pick, I think. He was so good.
You're going to take Jaron over SK for real? For real?
No, I you guys say I'm Mr. Positive. I'm trying to go against the grain right now.
I know. I'm just saying, like, really, like Jaron over SK.
There's an argument to be made, but SK obviously would be the pick. but I mean, if Jaron didn't get broken his senior year, we'll see.
Fair.
All right. Should we land Nolley? What grade do you give the staff in the transfer portal? I'd give them an A-.
I'd go A.
I think that's actually. I was gonna say I think A- is probably the starting point.
Yeah, you're not gonna
I go solid A.
Even the biggest optimist would still say probably A as well.
Well, I mean, when you're keeping in mind like the NIL stuff, that's like the limitations that are put on you in that regard, the fact that you're still playing in the American for one more year. Like, trust me, when we get to the transfer portal next year, things are going to look a lot different for Cincinnati because the Big 12 is attached to their name.
Right.
Everything.
So,
changes.
Given the resources, given the realistic situation that Cincinnati was in, given that, like, ultimately they had a 10-man roster when you hit the transfer portal. Like, you still had, when you count the freshmen coming in, almost a full roster before you add any of these three guys. Like, I would go a solid A, like a 90. What 90 to 100 is an A now? Is that how the grading scale works anymore?
Yeah. And well, and essentially
like a 92, like 93, that's an A.
Even without the Big 12, because the only one of these three guys, if Landers Nolley ends up being the third, the only one of these three guys who has any eligibility past this next season is Nolley. And you landed what, potentially three starters?
Potentially, yeah.
So, well done. If we, and then the picture on Bearcat Journal just adds to this. If we reel in Landers Nolley, would his nickname be Ned? No, no. Ned Landers, get out of here.
We're not calling him Ned Landers. No, get out, Aaron.
That's how you
get out.
Get out. That's how you run him right out of here. Actually, if you call him Ned.
Yeah, we should probably take down that question.
Act like it never happened.
Yeah. When you have a 2024 prospect like we do from one of the Hills, how does the staff walk a fine line between staying on top of a recruit versus smothering him? And do these types of situations usually get assigned to one primary recruiter?
So the NCAA doesn't really allow you to smother, right? You're only allowed so many like in-home visits, evaluations, contacts. Like, they keep you from hurting yourself in that regard in some ways. Cincinnati's staff philosophy is kind of you have a primary, but everybody's involved. Because the way recruiting is now, you generally have the parents, and then you have like their trainer, and then you have like a brother that's involved, or the AAU coach or the high school coach. Like, so the key is identifying who matters, right? And then assigning one person on the staff to each person that, like, everybody's got somebody that matters in this recruitment. Why? Because that's how you make everybody feel important, right? So if you've got a lead recruiter and he's got the kid and maybe mom, and then the head coach deals with the kid and mom, and then maybe the second assistant deals with his workout guy or the guy that trains him, and the third assistant deals with, you know, his brother that lives, you know, across the country. And now everybody feels important, right? Now the trainer feels like, oh, Cincinnati cares. They got somebody reaching out to me, letting me know what's up and keeping me in the loop. And the brother feels like, oh, they got my back, even though I'm living out of state and not, you know, there when the staff comes around, they're still keeping in touch. And like, so there's a lot of like, it's what you would expect in the information age, right? Everybody that's directly attached to a kid wants to be part of the flow of information. And in order to do that, you have to kind of like assign how things play out. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
There was a question that came in here in the chat that I think we should probably address. Phinisee's commitment is a weird one, especially given the crowded backcourt. David, the best scorer of the three. Him, Rob.
Not a weird one at all. Just because it's weird to you doesn't make it weird.
Him, Rob, and Adams Woods, but Rob is by far the most steady piece. Who loses minutes? I don't
Micah?
think. Well, I was gonna say I don't know that they plan on running DDJ at the one.
They're not. I mean, maybe 5 minutes, spot minute here, spot minute there. He's not comfortable, and we saw that 2 years ago with just the strict, like, what comes with being the regular every play point guard. He wants some freedom. He wants to be able to create and come off screens and, you know, do some stuff that we saw last year that makes him really good. Is there a lot of time he's going to have the ball in his hands and do his thing where he's, you know, moving and shaking and crossing people up and making plays? Yes. But he's much more comfortable if he is able to be like free of mind. My job's to score. I'll pass and I'll be a good teammate and I'll do all those things, but he needs to know in his mind what his specific role is, and that's put the ball in the basket. When you're the point guard, that's not how you see it, right? You see it as you have to get people involved, and you got to initiate the offense, and you got to get everybody in the right spots, and you got to know like where everybody's supposed to be at every second of every play. And that clogs your mind. And some people are comfortable with it, some people are not. What we learned 2 years ago is that Dave wasn't overly comfortable with it. Can he do it some? Sure. But it's not something as he plays the game that makes him comfortable and able to just go out and do his thing, right? That everybody talks about. You don't want to think, you want to do, you want to act and react and play. And if you're thinking, that takes that away from you. And I think when Dave feels the burden of I'm the point guard, I think it takes away from the other things that he's actually good at.
Well, he did follow up and said, only weird to me because I'm a diehard Butler fan along with UC. Fit was better at Butler, but Rob is so solid. Played him in high school for 4 years. If he can stay on the court, it's huge. So,
okay.
All right.
All right.
Then does each coaching staff have a draft board or their own rating system when it comes to recruiting?
I don't know that it's a rating system. I think they have like a tier of like, these guys are in this tier, these guys are in the tier below that. And then you're going to have opinions on where the tiers are. That is something like, you know, on a Monday after an AAU weekend, you're going to have a long meeting with everybody talking about what they saw from guys on the board, depending on what event they were at, right? So today you're going to have there's going to be probably a lot of talk about Dalen Swain in the meeting today. From what Wes and Morgan saw from him 2 weeks ago in Orlando at the EYBL, and from what Roberts and Dollar saw from him at EYBL and Indy this week. And then they're going to go over yes, he's a great ball handler. Yes, he's got great length. We worry a little bit that when he's engaged, his effort is great, but he disconnects a lot. And what is he as a three-point shooter? Because he's one of those guys that doesn't shoot threes. And in today's college game, if you're going to be a wing and you're going to be a guy with the ball in your hands a lot, how valuable are you if you're not if you just don't shoot threes? Where the defense knows I don't have to guard him out there. I don't have to fight over a ball screen to keep him from just picking up his dribble and stepping into a three. I can go under every ball screen on this guy. And now all of a sudden your dribbling and your ability to handle the ball is neutralized because you're not a guy that'll take threes. And that's you can't leave that in a coach's mind. I'm sure why he's not shooting threes is because he's not a good three-point shooter, right? But at times it's even worse to just not shoot them. Because then they're just well, we don't know. And if we don't know, it's probably not a good investment to stick our neck out for, is this kid going to develop as a three-point shooter? If you shoot and miss, but you got a nice stroke, coaches will look at it and say, we can work with that. If you shoot and miss and your stroke is broken, then you're probably going to drop down a couple levels, if we're being honest.
Chad, have you disagreed with the coaching staff or recruiting service evaluation of a player and proven to be correct or way off?
Both. Lots. Plenty. All the time. I thought Gary Clark was the top 50 player. Nobody at 24/7 would listen to me. Turns out I was right on that one. Or at least the top 75 and not a guy that was down in the hundreds, right? There's been plenty I've gotten wrong. Most of those kids didn't land at UC for one reason or another. But yeah, you get them wrong all the time, just as much as you get them right.
I feel like that's probably anybody, though. How do you balance the transfer portal with quick fixes in April while balancing the long-term player development of your younger players?
I think a lot of that, and man, it's going to get real interesting as we go over these next couple years, right? Because there's a lot of coaches that are just focusing on the portal. We're just going to make our hay in the portal. We'll get one or two. There was an interesting conversation about this today. I don't remember where I saw it. I was on Twitter, which it usually is. But players 11, 12, 13 on your roster, right? In a lot of ways, that used to be freshmen most of the time. And it's still going to be freshmen most of the time. But what's happening now is those guys, 11, 12, 13, are spending 1 year not playing and leaving. So if you're going to recruit freshmen, you're going to have to be pretty sure that they're going to be in your top 8 or 9 guys, right? Where they're getting 10, 12, 14 minutes, a chance to have something to believe in, I guess, if you will. Some hope. And
if you're not sure, it's hard to take freshmen right now. Because the reality is they're going to sit, they're going to get pissed. The people around them are going to be pissed. And then when everybody's pissed, they enter the transfer portal.
Are you privy to the plan in off-season for Vic? What are they working on with him? Endurance, fitness, low post moves.
I'm going to try to get Mike on here at some point so we can kind of go over that, Rayfelt. So we can kind of go over that with each guy, what the plan is. Yes, they are going to work on his endurance, fitness, and low post moves this offseason.
He had some quick feet in that one video.
Do you think that what you were talking about just on the last question, do you think that leads to a trend of staffs only wanting 10 to 11 scholarship players?
Yeah. Honest, like that's how it's been for a long time to begin with. So I don't know that that's anything new. It's just going to be exacerbated. You like that, Aaron? Big word for you. By the fact that with the portal, you can just leave, because what used to keep those guys around? I just sat for a year, and if I leave, now I'm going to have to go somewhere else and sit for another year before I get on the floor, because you have to sit a year if you transfer. So then those guys would stick around and try to get on the floor in year 2. Now, I didn't play in year 1. Screw these guys. I'm going somewhere to play in year 2.
All right. Last question on the basketball portion of the mailbag. Assuming Chad uses his YouTube money to finance a remake. Oh, yeah. No, this first question of the banks. Sorry. Assuming Chad uses his YouTube money to finance a remake of the classic Breaking Bad, who plays which characters, and why is Nico playing Skylar?
I've never seen Breaking Bad.
I think we knew that. You don't watch TV.
It's not going to be popular. I don't watch TV. I've never seen Breaking Bad.
I think it's pretty funny. Having Nico as Skylar.
Well, you're Walter.
I don't know what it means.
Chad, you're Walter.
Okay.
That means that Aaron is
Jesse Pinkman.
Jesse Pinkman. Yes, Nico can be Skylar. There's no doubt in my mind about that. Am I Saul, or am I? I'll be Saul. Saul.
That's fair. I think Dave would be the what's the bald guy?
Who, the brother, or the or like the hitman type guy?
The henchman. Yeah,
Mike.
That one.
Mike.
Yeah, that would be Dave.
Yeah. I think we wrapped it up pretty good there.
All right. I don't know what it means. I don't know what it means.
Well,
but good work, boys.
Who's Gus Fring? Oh, he's the scary boss. We don't have any of those.
I don't think we have a scary boss.
We'll keep it PG for now.
What song would you pick for your walk-up music, baseball or wrestling, depending on how you want to think about it? And why would Brent come into Barbie Girl by Aqua?
Mine's Barbie Girl only if I've got like a few females walking with me as well. So
I've got a walk-up song. I've got an intro song. International Players Anthem. It's what I play at the top of every hour when I'm on radio.
I was going to say, don't play it here. We're going to get it.
Yeah, no, we're good. We're good.
I'd go with Damn It Feels Good to Be a Gangsta.
Oh, wow.
Best known
So that was my other song back in a previous life with Skinny. That was our song, was Damn It Feels Good to Be a Gangster.
Even though I was born in Jamaica, and now I'm in the U.S. making
deals. Yep.
Yeah.
How much cold medicine can Aaron buy before he's flagged as a meth maker and ends up in prison asking for a friend? Well, considering my baby mama is a pharmacist, I think I'll be okay.
Oh, so she's in on it too. Interesting.
I'm mostly a ride it out guy, man. Like, this is gonna pass. Let's ride it out. I might take a Mucinex, like, or something like a Claritin D if it's my sinuses. But for the most part, I'm gonna sleep for 2 or 3 days and just make this thing go away.
I traditionally don't like to take medicine at all, so
that's my point. I'm not a medicine guy.
It's so out of sorts for me.
Yep.
Do you think UC will ever be considered a blue blood in sports, and what will it take for them to be considered a blue blood in sports?
No
championships.
The blue blood thing is like in basketball. I guess it could happen. Like if you came back and you won like 3 championships in a decade, you could
do what Villanova did. Have Wes Miller be the next Jay Wright, and then you become that blue blood again.
But I didn't think Villanova was a blue blood.
I'd say
I think they were a new blood.
The country was. what things. I say a majority of the country thought they were.
They had before this run. They had one Final Four in the '80s, and that was it.
Oh no, I know.
That's not a blue blood to me.
No, I know, but I'm
old
just saying,
money versus new money,
if
right?
you listen to,
Right.
I
That's why I called it a new blood.
I listened to so many
Yeah.
podcasts throughout the NCAA tournament. And a lot of them were arguing this, and I think the majority would say that they kind of aren't. If you go back very far, but how far are you going back? Like, what was Duke before Coach K? What was
Duke was very good before Coach K.
I mean, they brought it up. They said that Coach K kind of just made them
False. Go look at Coach K before Duke, or Duke before Coach K.
I will. I mean, I'm just saying
they had fours and Elite Eights before Coach K got there. Is what I'm saying. Like they were established before Coach K was.
So did Cincinnati, though.
No, I agree. But like what they were explaining is Connecticut, who was nothing before Calhoun got there, right? Or like in Arizona that was nothing before Lute Olson got there. There was a point in the early 2000s where Connecticut was the new blood, right? And then Calhoun left.
Duke
taken a hit.
Duke had 4 Final Fours before K.
Yeah, that's significant.
Cincinnati probably had the same amount.
Okay, Cincinnati now only has 6 or 8. So what? 5, 6 in the history of the program.
Right. So just go on a magical run under a coach.
Just go on a 40-year magical run under a coach, and that's what it takes.
Jay Wright, only 21 years. There you go.
I don't consider Villanova a blue blood. I just don't. I consider them the best program in the country over the past 8-9 years. But that doesn't make you a blue blood. A blue blood is Kentucky that goes from Rupp to Joe B. Hall to Tubby Smith winning it, to Pitino and Tubby Smith winning a title and Cal winning a title. Like, that's a blue blood.
For sure. Yeah, there's no doubt.
Duke, North Carolina, Kansas, UCLA. Those are the 5 blue bloods. I only have 5 in the whole sport.
All right. We are moving on, trying to wrap this up.
Right.
Best cereal, and why is Cinnamon Toast Crunch at the top of everyone's list? It's not
because
top
Cinnamon
of my
Toast
list.
is
Top
the best
3.
Best cereal. It's the best cereal. It's not top 3. It's
Fruity Pebbles for me.
Top 3, and it's not 2 or 3.
Fruity Pebbles.
Fruity Pebbles is top 3, but it's not 1.
It's my 1.
I know. What's your number 1?
Who, Aaron? Yours is Fruity Pebbles?
Fruity Pebbles.
Yeah, he already said. What's your number 1? The guy that hasn't answered yet.
Not a big cereal guy. I mean, I'll go Cinnamon Toast Crunch. I like drinking it afterwards.
That's the thing with Cinnamon Toast Crunch. Yes.
Cinnamon Toast Crunch is my go-to creamer, though. I will say that. Will the 3-13 Reds cost David Bell his job? If so, how much more time does he have if we keep winning at a .243 clip?
They will, at some point, sacrifice David Bell. It will not be David Bell's fault, but at some point they will have to sacrifice him.
Who gets scapegoated first, Krall or Bell?
Bell.
You're probably right.
Bell, for sure. I don't even think it's close. I think it's Bell for sure.
This one was too long. Didn't
TLDR.
fit.
Yeah. Sorry.
The Talkback segment on Cincy 360 is the best local radio segment since Banana.
It's probably Banana Phone. It is hilarious. I gave Tony and Austin a shout out the other day. I don't know how sustainable it is. I don't know how long they can keep doing this while it'll still be funny. But right now, it is a riot. They've got like 30 of them a day that are like impersonations and like sarcasm and comedy. Who's the country star that Girth Brooks. He acts like he's a porn star. He does it in a country twang, and he calls himself Girth Brooks.
Is there a company that has lost your business forever? If so, what did they do?
I don't think so.
I'm
not a huge grudge guy. Like my wife, like her family are like, she's got aunts that haven't spoken to each other. Sisters. They're sisters. They haven't spoken to each other in like 10 years.
Jeez.
Like they're grudge. I'm not a grudge person. Like if you screw up, like, whatever. Like you screwed up. I might not frequent your business as often, but I'm not a huge, like, I'm never coming back.
Yeah, I don't know
I'm not a Karen.
that I've really done that.
No.
No, you're a Chad.
Right, which is supposed to be the same thing, but I'm the exact opposite.
I was just making the joke. That's the mailbag. Let's get out of here.
All right,
Great
bye.
job.
See ya.
Urban Artifacts.
Jesus.
Thank
How
you
do
for
we get to
everything.
240?
Mailbag was a long one today. Urban Artifacts, thanks for everything. Timestamp it, Aaron, real quick. Thank you very much, Urban Artifacts. A big shout out and thank you as well to Danco Transmission. Great followers and great everything. Go there. $10 off for no change. This, that, and the other. Anything in closing, guys?
Nope. Let's get out of here. We got a nightcap to do. See you
Alrighty.
later.
For my buddies, Chad Brendel and Aaron Smith, I am Brent Young. Thanks for listening. This was another great BBP presented by BearcatJournal.com.
See ya.